Hey guys, tonight we're going to wander into the dusty, echoing silence of the ancient Persian postal routes, where donkeys were not just humble beasts of burden, but the messengers of empire. You trudge along a narrow path, the moon overhead as thin as a scimitar blade, dust rising from your steps and the quiet clop of donkey hooves mixing with a gentle rustle of evening wind. The smell of sand and old leather fills your nose as you adjust the small satchel slung over your shoulder. You probably won't survive this trek if you're not quick on your feet. Bandits aren't too fond of postal runners carrying imperial messages. But don't worry. You've got a donkey with you, and is a seasoned traveler, more experienced than any courier who's dared the empire's wide and dangerous road. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And don't forget to drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where everyone's tuning in. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself adjusting your stride to match the donkey's gentle pace, the two of you like an unlikely pair dancing across the sand-swept plain. The donkey's ears flick at the night sounds, an owl calling far off, a distant rumble of unseen travelers. The moon glimmers on the edge of your mail satchel, where papyrus scrolls tied with colored threads hint at the urgent words they carry. You wonder, idly, what secrets these scrolls hold. Promises of trade, declarations of war, maybe even a love poem hidden among the bureaucratic banter. The road here is packed firm by countless hooves before you, a dusty ribbon stretching across the horizon. You catch glimpses of ancient wheel ruts where carts must have once followed the same path. Your donkey plods along, his breath a slow, steady rhythm that grounds you against the silence of the landscape. The stars above wheel quietly, Orion's belt gleaming faintly, guiding travelers like you across the shadowed land. A low stone marker at the side of the path bears faint chisel marks, nearly erased by wind and sand. You imagine some long-forgotten postal runner pausing here centuries ago, carving a quick tally or a simple blessing into the stone before moving on. Historians still argue whether such markers were official waypoints or personal tokens left by solitary couriers. Either way, your donkey doesn't care. He keeps walking, ears twitching at the distant call of a jackal. The night deepens, the air cooling, and you find yourself wrapping your cloak tighter. The donkey snorts softly, as if agreeing that it's time to move a bit faster. Up ahead, the faint outline of a caravanserai takes shape against the moonlit dune, a place of rest, perhaps for merchants and messengers alike. You wonder if you'll find others here, or if the place will be as silent as the sand. You approach slowly, the donkey's hooves stirring up faint puffs of dust that catch the moonlight like ghostly trails. The thick wooden gate creaks as you push it open, revealing a walled courtyard where few other donkeys doze near low stone troughs. The air smells faintly of grain and oil, with a hint of something sweeter, maybe dates or pomegranates left for travelers. A solitary lantern swings gently from a hook, casting a pool of golden light that dances across the walls. You lead your donkey to an empty stall, loosening his bridle and offering him a handful of grain from a cloth pouch tied at your waist. Inside the low, arched room, a few men sit cross-legged near a small fire. They glance up as you enter, nodding in greeting but saying little. The air inside is thick with the scent of old smoke, leather, and sweat. You settle near the fire, feeling the warmth seep into your bone. One of the men, his beard streaked with gray and his tunic patched at the elbows, nods toward your donkey. "Good beast," he says softly. "Strong leg for a long road." You nod in agreement, glancing toward the doorway where your donkey stands, silhouetted against the moonlit courtyard. The old man leans in slightly, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "They say the best donkeys for this work come from the high plateaus, bred where the air is thin and the paths are steep. Stronger lungs, better stamina." He taps his chest lightly. Historians still argue whether it's the altitude or the water that makes them so hardy. You share a quiet smile with the man, feeling the camaraderie of travelers bound by the road's quiet hardships. The fire crackles softly, its glow painting the walls with shifting shadows. You listen as the men trade stories, some of routes taken, others of messages lost or found. Someone mentions a courier who vanished for 3 months, only to reappear with a message that had turned brittle and nearly unreadable from time. Another speaks of a donkey that refused to cross a flooded wadi, forcing its rider to wait 3 days for the waters to recede. "Smart beast," one man muttered, and the others nod. You glance toward your satchel, feeling the weight of the scrolls within, secrets sealed in ink, waiting for dawn and the next leg of the journey. You close your eyes briefly, the warmth of the fire and the steady presence of the donkey lulling you into a shallow sleep. The night outside remains clear, the moon climbing higher, its light spilling across the sand. Somewhere, far down the line, another courier waits with a donkey just like yours, carrying words that weave the empire together. You wake with a start. The fire in the caravanserai's low room reduced to embers. The donkey shifts restlessly outside, the faint clink of his harness bells stirring the quiet. You rise, brushing the dust from your cloak, and tighten the straps of your satchel. The dawn is still far off, but the postal trail waits for no one. Your donkey watches you with calm, dark eyes, as though to say, ready when you are. You step out into the courtyard, the cool air sharp against your skin, and lead your companion back to the road. His ears flick at the rustle of the wind, the faint stirrings of the desert awakening. The path stretches ahead, a pale ribbon of moonlight traced by hoofprints and the wheel scars of ancient carts. Your breath fogs faintly in the air, a soft reminder that even in the desert's heart, the night can bite. You move quietly, the donkey's hooves muffled by sand, until you reach a narrow pass where the path winds between low, rocky hills. Here, under the watchful glow of a half-set moon, you notice faint grooves cut into the stone, a telltale sign of male runners who've passed this way before. Some say these grooves were etched by countless hooves and wheels. Others claim they were deliberately cut by satrap messengers to mark the safest route. Historians still argue whether the grooves were accidental or intentional, but the path is clear enough for your donkey to follow without hesitation. Your thoughts drift as you walk. You imagine a satrap's courier, hunched in his saddle, clutching a pouch sealed with wax and marked with the governor's personal emblem. These messages weren't just idle correspondence. They carried orders, treaties, secrets meant only for royal eyes. The donkeys, sure-footed and steady, were entrusted with these priceless secrets. You picture the satrap seal, a heavy stamp carved from bronze or ivory, pressed into warm wax, leaving it marked like a signature in stone. In your own satchel, the scrolls bear seals as well, though the symbols are worn and faint from handling. A sharp call pierces the quiet, the call of a raven perched on a nearby outcrop. The donkey snorts, shaking his head as though trying to dislodge the sound. You offer him a quiet word, smoothing his bristled coat, and continue forward. The path descends slightly, the sand giving way to firmer ground marked by occasional tufts of scrubby grass. Ahead, the low silhouette of another messenger station appears against the dimming night. As you approach, you notice the outer wall is punctuated by a series of small slits, archers' windows, a precaution against bandits and rival forces. The station's wooden gate stands ajar, swinging gently in the breeze. Inside, a lone figure in a patched tunic tends a small fire, glancing up as you enter. He gestures to a narrow trough where you can water your donkey. You lead the animal forward, watching as he drinks with slow, steady gulp. The man by the fire nods. "You're lucky," he murmurs. "No trouble on the road tonight. But they say a satrap's pouch was stolen last week, and the roads are being watched more closely." He taps the side of his nose with a dusty finger. "They'll be looking for messengers who don't keep their eyes open." You thank him quietly and settle beside the fire, warming your hands as the donkey rests nearby. The scent of smoke and roasted dates fills the air, mingling with a faint tang of metal from the station's weapons rack. The man chuckles softly. "They say the satraps used to hide their messages in hollowed-out date pits, sealed with a bit of wax. Fool the bandits, they thought." His eyes crinkle with amusement. Historians still argue whether that worked, or if the bandits just ate the dates and read the messages anyway. You imagine the scene. A messenger caught on the road, dates scattered from an appended pouch, the bandits laughing as they uncover the hidden missives. It's almost comical, but the stakes were high. A misplaced message could shift the balance of power, spark a rebellion, or doom an entire village. The donkey shifts beside you. It was flicking as though listening to your thought. The fire crackles, casting a warm glow against the cold, gray stone of the station's walls. The man by the fire hums a low tune, tapping his foot in time. You find yourself swaying gently, the donkey's steady breathing blending with the music. The weight of the scrolls in your satchel a constant reminder of your mission. You think of the satrap seal, the heavy wax pressed with its emblem, and wonder how many seals like it have been carried along these routes, entrusted to riders and their donkeys. The sky outside begins to pale, the first hints of dawn staining the horizon with a soft pink glow. You rise, brushing sand from your knees, and call to your donkey. He lifts his head, ears perked, ready to move. You nod your thanks to the man at the fire, his eyes twinkling with unspoken stories, and step back onto the road. The donkey's hooves strike the packed earth with a steady rhythm, the trail opening before you like a ribbon of light. The satrap seals in your satchel seem to pulse faintly with each step, as though eager to reach their destination. You adjust the strap across your shoulder, feeling the comforting weight of the scrolls. Somewhere ahead, the next station waits, and beyond that, the royal court where these messages will be read, decisions made, and futures sealed. The path curves gently between two low hills, the sky lightening to a pale gold as the sun peaks over the horizon. You catch the scent of morning air, fresh and cool, tinged with a faint perfume of distant flowering bushes. The donkey breathes deeply, his nostrils flaring, and you feel a surge of quiet gratitude for his steadfast presence. As the road stretches ahead, you imagine the satrap's messenger riding through history, his seal pressed firm against the scrolls, the donkey's sure hooves leaving their mark on the ancient route. The story unfolds with every step, every turn of the path, every breath of dawn-colored air. And you, walking beside your companion, are part of that endless tale, one hoof-beat at a time. The sun crests the horizon in a spill of molten gold, casting long, slanting shadows across the sandy road. Your donkey's ears twitch at the shift in light, and you adjust your stride to match his steady, sure pace. The path before you gleams faintly, the dawn's glow painting everything in shades of pink and ochre. The satchel at your side swings with your steps. The weight of its sealed scrolls a gentle but constant reminder of the trust placed in your hand, and in your donkey's sturdy hoof. The air is crisp and clean, carrying a faint trace of salt and the distant whisper of the Caspian wind. Ahead, the trail widens into a bustling crossroad where traders and messengers converge. Donkeys with woven saddlebags jostle for space beside camels laden with brass wire and fine silk. Merchants' voices rise in a polyglot mix of tongues, each call and barter punctuated by the low bray of a disgruntled donkey or the creak of a heavily laden cart. You pause at the edge of the crossroad, your donkey snorting softly as if to say, "We've seen this before." His nostrils flare at the scent of roasted nuts and cured fish being sold from a nearby stall. You step aside to allow a caravan of traders to pass, their donkeys' harnesses jingling with small copper bells. One bell, in particular, catches your attention, a delicate chime like the tinkle of water over stone. You smile faintly, the sound oddly comforting. A trader in a tunic dyed the deep blue of indigo leans against a cart piled with bales of silk, watching the commotion with a knowing eye. He nods in your direction. "Messages?" he asks, his voice low but carrying easily over the din. You nod in reply, tapping the satchel slung across your chest. The man chuckles softly. "Always more valuable than..." They say a single scroll can shift a king's fortune faster than a caravan of gold. He squints at your donkey, whose ears swivel attentively. "Good beast, strong legs, Persian stock." You nod again, resting a hand lightly on the donkey's neck. The trader's smile widens. Historians still argue whether it was Persian breeding or clever training that made these donkeys the backbone of empire route, he says. Either way, they've got more sense than most men. His laugh is low and warm, and you find yourself chuckling in response. Your donkey paws at the ground, eager to move. You murmur a quiet thanks to the trader, and guide your companion back onto the main path. The crossroads noise fades behind you, replaced by the steady rhythm of hooves and the quiet rustle of wind through sparse roadside shrubs. You fall into an easy rhythm, the donkey's gait lulling you into a state of almost dreamlike calm. The landscape shifts subtly, the ground rising and falling in gentle undulation. Low stone walls, their surfaces rough with lichen and thyme, line portions of the trail, marking the edges of ancient fields or forgotten boundary. You spot occasional clusters of wildflowers pushing bravely through cracks in the stone, their delicate petals catching the morning light. The donkey seems to enjoy the scent, his nostrils flaring appreciatively as he passes. You reach a small stone outpost, barely more than a low-walled enclosure with a crumbling roof where a pair of sleepy-eyed guards lounge on rough-hewn benches. One stays as you approach, squinting against the sun's glare. "Message run," he calls, his voice thick with sleep. You nod, producing a sealed scroll from your satchel. The guard waves you through with a lazy gesture. "Straight ahead. Roads are clear today. Just mind the hill pass ahead. It's narrow, and the stones are loose." You nod your thanks and continue, the donkey's steady pace carrying you past the outpost and into a shallow valley. The scent of salt grows stronger, and you realize you're drawing to the great Caspian basin. The path dips and curves, revealing glimpses of sparkling water through gaps in low, scrubby trees. You pause at a bend, letting your donkey rest, and take in the sight of the vast, shimmering sea stretching to the horizon. The breeze here is stronger, tinged with the sharp scent of salt and the faintest hint of fish. You imagine the couriers who passed this way centuries ago, their donkeys carrying not just messages but salt for preservation, dried fish, and bundles of exotic herbs bound for inland market. Some of these donkeys, it's said, became as prized as the goods they bore. There's an old tale, half forgotten and only half believed, that tells of a donkey named Tarsin who carried a load of fish so fine that the satrap himself demanded the beast as a gift. Historians still argue whether Tarsin was real or just a fishmonger's embellishment, but your donkey seems to like the story, his ears perking as though he's listening. You follow the trail down toward the water's edge, where a narrow strip of land serves as both path and fishing ground. Small boats bob gently in the shallows, and fishermen call greetings as you pass. One offers a handful of dried fish as a gesture of goodwill, which you accept with a nod of thanks, tucking it into a pocket. Your donkey eyes the fish suspiciously, but resumes a steady plod as you move inland again, away from the salt breeze and back onto the familiar dusty road. The sun climbs higher, its warmth sinking into your shoulders as you continue. The road curves inland once more, rising gently toward the distant hill. You catch sight of another caravan in the distance, dust rising in their wake. The donkey's ears flick forward, his pace quickening slightly in anticipation of company. You adjust your satchel and prepare for the next leg of the journey, the sun-drenched path stretching endlessly before you, whispering with the stories of countless travelers who have come this way before. The sun climbs higher still, its rays baking the dusty trail into a pale shimmer. Your donkey's pace slows slightly as the heat settles over the land like a heavy blanket. You loosen the neck of your tunic, letting the faint breeze cool your skin, and adjust the satchel that holds its precious cargo of sealed messages. The quiet jingle of your donkey's harness bells keeps rhythm with your steps, a subtle accompaniment to the hushed rustle of dry grasses and the occasional call of a distant bird. As you crest a low ridge, the landscape ahead unfolds into a patchwork of golden sand and green oases. You catch sight of tall date palms clustered around a deep blue pool, their fronds swaying gently in the wind. The donkey perks up, his ears swiveling forward as though he's picked up the scent of water. You murmur softly to him, your voice low and soothing, and guide him down the slope toward the oasis. The path leading into the oasis is lined with smooth stones, worn to softness by the countless hooves and sandals that have passed this way before. Small stone markers stand at irregular intervals, some bearing faint, almost indecipherable carvings. You wonder about the couriers who might have paused here centuries ago, sharing news and a sip of cool water before pressing on. Historians still argue whether these oases were natural or engineered by clever satraps who understood that a reliable postal route needed reliable rest stops. As you approach the pool, a low murmur of voices reaches your ears. You make out the shapes of other travelers, merchants and messengers alike, gathered under the shade of a palm. One man, his head wrapped in a patterned cloth, tends a small fire where a pot of tea simmers. He glances up as you enter the clearing, nodding a quiet greeting. "Welcome, friend," he says softly, his voice as smooth as the wind on the water. Long road behind you. You nod, offering a simple smile as you lead your donkey to the edge of the pool. The animal drinks deeply, his sides heaving with quiet satisfaction. You crouch beside him, scooping a handful of water to splash across your face, feeling the coolness seep into your skin. The scent of fresh water and damp earth is a welcome relief from the dryness of the trail. The other travelers settle into quiet conversation, their voices blending with the soft crackle of the fire and the occasional clink of a metal cup. One older man, his beard long and white, leans on a carved wooden staff. He gestures toward the pool. They say, he murmurs, that the water here carries whispers from other land, that if you listen closely, you can hear the secrets of distant kingdoms carried on the breeze. He chuckles, shaking his head. Historians still argue whether it's magic or just the wind, but the stories make the tea taste sweeter. You sip from a cup offered by one of the merchants, the tea fragrant with mint and a hint of honey. The warmth spread through your chest, mingling with the cool breeze and the sound of rustling palm frond. The donkey nudges your shoulder gently, as though to remind you of the road ahead. You nod in agreement and rise, brushing dust from your cloak. As you leave the oasis, the path narrows once more, winding between low hills dotted with stunted bushes and the occasional scatter of stone. The donkey's hooves strike a steady rhythm against the hardened trail, and you find yourself falling into a quiet, meditative state. The road is familiar in its solitude. The only sounds the soft jingling of harness bells and the distant call of a lone hawk. A faint shimmer on the horizon catches your eye, a plume of dust rising from what appears to be a small caravan heading in the opposite direction. As the group draws closer, you make out the shapes of traders and guards, their donkeys laden with bundles of cloth and baskets of dates. One of the guards, his armor dusty and dented, raises a hand in greeting as you pass. "Safe travels," he calls, his voice roughened by the sun and wind. You nod in return, your donkey flicking his ears in acknowledgement. As the caravan disappears into the distance, the landscape flattens into a vast expanse of sand and scattered stone. You catch sight of a narrow track winding off to the left, a shortcut, perhaps, though its surface is rough and uneven. You pause, considering the route. The main trail is longer but smoother, while the shortcut could save you time but risk injury to your donkey or damage to your precious cargo. After a moment's hesitation, you choose the safer path, trusting in the donkey's steady pace to carry you through. The sun dips low in the sky, casting long shadows that stretch across the trail. You pass a small cairn of stones topped with a weathered wooden marker, its paint faded to near invisibility. You imagine the messenger who might have left it there, marking a safe passage or perhaps a warning. The donkey pauses, sniffing at the cairn before continuing on. The air grows cooler as evening approaches, the harsh glare of the sun softening into a warm, golden haze. You catch the scent of smoke on the breeze, and as you round a bend, you see a small encampment nestled between two rocky outcrops. A group of travelers sits around a low fire, their donkeys resting nearby. One woman, her hair braided with thin strands of gold, waves you over. "Join us," she calls, her voice warm and welcoming. There's bread and cheese, and the road is easier with company. You accept the invitation, settling near the fire as your donkey finds a comfortable spot to rest. The travelers share stories as the sky darkens, their laughter mingling with the crackle of the fire and the soft sigh of the wind. One man, his voice low and rough with age, tells of a message carried by donkey through the heart of a rival empire, sealed with a satrap's ring and hidden within a hollowed-out staff. "They say it was never opened," he whispered, "and that the secret inside was lost forever." His tale is met with quiet nods and murmurs, the weight of history settling over the gathering like a gentle blanket. As the stars emerge, you find yourself staring into the fire, your thoughts drifting with the smoke. The donkey's steady breathing beside you is a comforting presence, a reminder that the road continues tomorrow. You close your eyes briefly, the scent of bread, cheese, and wood smoke mingling with the soft rustle of desert wind. Dawn breaks quietly, the first pale fingers of light reaching across the desert floor. The donkey stays, his ears flicking as he senses your movement. You rise slowly, brushing sand from your cloak and stretching out the stiffness from a night spent near the campfire. Around you, the travelers are beginning to rouse as well, their quiet murmurs blending with the soft crackle of dying embers. The air holds a crispness, a fleeting coolness before the sun's heat asserts itself once more. You pack your satchel with careful hands, ensuring the scrolls are tucked securely beneath the flap. The satrap seals glimmer faintly in the growing light, their impressions crisp against the wax. You glance toward your donkey, who stands calmly, waiting. His patience is a steady counterpoint to the urgency of your task. You secure his bridle, patting his flank in silent thanks, and step onto the trail once more. The path stretches out before you, a pale ribbon winding between low, rocky outcrops. The donkey's hooves strike a familiar rhythm against the hardened earth, and you fall into step beside him, your breath sinking with his measured pace. As you walk, the rising sun paints the world in shades of gold and rose, the desert silence broken only by the occasional chirp of a hidden bird or the distant cry of a hawk soaring overhead. You reach a narrow defile where the trail hugs the side of a steep hill. The donkey hesitates briefly, then steps forward with the confidence of long practice. Loose stones shift underfoot, and you feel a moment's unease before the donkey's sure steps reassure you. You glance up at the craggy cliffs above, half expecting to see a watchful figure or the flutter of a distant banner. Historians still argue whether these narrow passes were once patrolled by the satrap's guards or left unguarded to test a courier's mettle. Either way, you're grateful for your donkey's quiet determination. As the trail levels out, you catch sight of an ancient milestone half buried in sand. Its carved characters are nearly worn away, but a faint outline of a cuneiform script hints at its message, a name perhaps, or a distance once counted by royal couriers. You pause, running your fingers lightly over the stone's rough surface, feeling the weight of countless journeys marked by its silent testimony. The donkey waits patiently, his breath steady, as though he too understands the significance of this small monument. You continue on, the landscape shifting subtly as you descend into a broad valley. Sparse stands of thorny shrubs up the plain, their branches casting spidery shadows across the sand. A faint scent of sagebrush rises on the breeze, mingling with a sharper tang of dust. Your donkey's ears swivel at a distant sound, the faint clang of a blacksmith's hammer carried on the wind. You quicken your pace, eager to reach the small village that must lie just beyond the next ridge. The village comes into view as the sun climbs higher, its cluster of mud brick houses surrounded by low walls and shaded courtyard. The streets are narrow and uneven, but the donkey picks his way carefully, his hooves tapping a steady rhythm against the worn stone. Merchants call out their wares, dates, figs, bundles of herbs, while children dart between stalls, their laughter ringing through the air like chime. You pause near a well where women fill clay jars, their voices soft and musical as they exchange greeting. One woman glances at you, her eyes flicking toward the satchel slung across your chest. She offers a quiet smile and murmurs, "A long road. Courier, may your message reach its mark." You nod in return, her blessing a gentle thread of connection amid the bustle of village life. In the shade of a low archway, an elderly man sits weaving baskets from strips of palm. He glances up as you pass, his gnarled fingers pausing in their work. "They say," he murmurs, his voice low and rough like sand on stone, "that once a message was sent by a donkey who refused to stop, even when his master fell ill, carried the satrap's words all the way to the court." He chuckles softly. Historians still argue whether the beast was loyal or just stubborn, but either way, the message was delivered. You smile at the tale, feeling the weight of your own task settle a little more lightly on your shoulders. You guide your donkey through the village's winding streets, emerging onto a broad, sunlit path that leads back into the desert. The sounds of the village fade behind you, replaced once more by the steady rhythm of hooves and the soft whisper of sand underfoot. The trail stretches ahead, marked at intervals by low stone cairns. You recognize the signs of an old postal route, markers set by couriers long gone, guiding those who follow in their footsteps. Your donkey moves steadily, his breath measured and even, his gaze fixed on the horizon. You catch a glimpse of a lone traveler far ahead, a figure silhouetted against the sky, and wonder briefly if they too carry messages sealed in wax and marked by the satrap's ring. The sun climbs higher, its heat pressing against your shoulders, but a faint breeze stays, carrying with it the scent of wild thyme and the distant murmur of flowing water. You quicken your pace, the promise of a stream ahead spurring you onward. When you reach it, the donkey lowers his head to drink, the sound of water mingling with the soft rustle of reed. You kneel beside him, splashing cool water over your face, feeling the tension ease from your limbs. You linger a moment longer, savoring the quiet before the road calls you onward once more. The donkey lifts his head, water dripping from his muzzle, and you rise to your feet, tightening the satchel at your side. Together, you step back onto the path, the trail unfurling before you like a ribbon of possibility, each step carrying you deeper into the story of the Persian postal routes mapped by donkey. The stream behind you whispers a fading farewell as you and your donkey climb back onto the dusty path. The morning sun casts a warm, honeyed glow across the land, painting the low hills with soft shadows. Your satchel sways gently against your hip, the sealed messages within cradled like fragile secrets. The donkey's steps are slow and sure, his ears flicking occasionally as if catching faint echoes of distant hoofbeats on the wind. The landscape spreads wide before you, a canvas of ochre and pale green, dotted with hardy shrubs and the occasional flash of wildflowers pushing defiantly through the cracks. As you walk, the rhythmic swish of your donkey's tail and the muffled thud of his hooves and the packed earth create a gentle cadence, a lullaby for the road. You crest a small rise and catch sight of a lone watchtower perched atop a rocky outcrop. Its weathered stone walls bear faint carvings, the remnant of an era when satraps guarded these postal routes as jealously as their own wealth. A faint curl of smoke rises from within, and you can almost hear the echo of conversations, half-whispered reports, coded messages traded in the shadows. Historians still argue whether these towers served purely as lookout points or doubled as secret relay stations where messages were exchanged under cover of night. Your donkey pauses, sniffing the air as if to catch a trace of ancient secrets. You give him a quiet pat, your fingers brushing the coarse hair along his neck, and together you continue, the tower receding into the distance like a memory fading with the morning haze. The path dips into a shallow basin where the air is heavy with the scent of juniper and warm stone. Here, the landscape shifts subtly, the sand giving way to compacted earth marked with faint wagon ruts and hoof prints. You imagine caravans of traders and messengers weaving through this basin, their donkeys laden with everything from fine silks to jars of honeyed almond. One of the old tales tells of a messenger who once bartered a single mooncake from his satrap's kitchen for safe passage through a rebel-held pass. They say, the story goes that the rebels liked the mooncake so much they let him through without a scratch. Whether true or simply a confectioner's fantasy, it's a story that lingers in your thoughts as you press forward. A faint breeze stays the air, carrying with it the scent of something sharp and metallic. You round a bend and find yourself standing before a narrow wooden bridge spanning a deep, rocky gully. The bridge creaks ominously under your donkey's weight, the board shifting slightly with each step. You murmur encouragement, your hand resting lightly on his flank, and he continues forward with the calm confidence of a seasoned traveler. Beneath you, the gully yawns wide, its floor littered with boulders and the remnants of old carts, testaments to the risks of this treacherous crossing. On the far side of the bridge, the path widens into a plateau where a solitary tree casts a pool of welcome shade. You pause beneath its branches, sharing a handful of dried figs and a sip of water with your donkey. The silence here is profound, broken only by the occasional chirp of a lizard hidden in the rocks. You lean back against a tree trunk, feeling the rough bark against your skin, and close your eyes for a moment. The weight of the messages in your satchel presses lightly against your side, a gentle reminder that the road's still cold. When you move on, the sun hangs high and bright, the sky a vast expanse of cobalt blue. The donkey walks with steady determination, his shadow stretching long and thin across the dusty trail. Ahead, you see the faint shimmer of a caravanserai rising from the desert like a mirage. Its walls are sun-bleached and weathered, its arched entrance framed by faded tile mosaics. You approach with a mixture of relief and caution, knowing that these roadside inns were as much havens as they were hubs of intrigue. Inside the caravanserai's courtyard, merchants and messengers gather in small knots, their voices low and guarded. You guide your donkey to a shaded corner where he can rest and drink, and you take a seat on a worn stone bench near a low fountain. The cool splash of water and the faint scent of rose petals offer a moment's respite from the heat. A man seated nearby, his robes marked with the insignia of a satrap's courier, leans closer and murmurs, careful on the next stretch. They say a band of thieves has been intercepting messages bound for the capital. Watch for false guides. His warning settles over you like a shadow. You nod, murmuring your thanks, and sip from a cup of fragrant tea. You catch snatches of conversation, rumors of uprisings, whispered accusations of betrayal, tales of coded messages hidden in the folds of silk or written in invisible ink. The caravanserai hums with quiet tension, the undercurrent of intrigue threading through every glance and hushed word. Historians still argue whether these inns were safe havens or thinly veiled traps, but one thing is certain, the stories born here traveled as swiftly as the messages themselves. You rise, your donkey waiting patiently at your side. You tighten the satchel strap and lead him through the arched gate back onto the sun-drenched road. The landscape stretches before you, wide and open, the faint tracks of other travelers etched into the dust. You follow those lines, each step a quiet echo of the countless messengers who came before, each carrying secrets, orders, and dreams bound for the heart of the empire. As the shadows lengthen, you catch a glimpse of a distant mountain range, its peaks softened by haze. The trail curved toward it, promising new challenges, new encounters, and the quiet, enduring companionship of your steadfast donkey. The sun dips lower, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, and you walk on, your breath mingling with the quiet air, your thoughts carried forward by the steady rhythm of hooves on ancient stone. The sun continues its descent as you and your donkey press onward, the path ahead growing narrower and more treacherous. Shadows stretch long across the trail, and the low, whispering wind carries with it a faint scent of distant rain. Your satchel, filled with messages whose words have yet to reach their intended readers, bounces lightly against your side, each jostle a quiet reminder of your purpose. The donkey, sensing the shift in terrain, slows his pace, his hooves striking the stone with a deliberate, measured rhythm. You notice the landscape becoming rockier, the earth giving way to slabs of slate and patches of loose green. The trail narrows, hugging the side of a steep cliff where a misstep could mean a long tumble. You guide your donkey carefully, your hand resting lightly on his flank, offering a silent reassurance even as you draw comfort from his calm and steady presence. His ears twitch, listening to the faint echoes of his own footfall. A sudden gust of wind whistles through the narrow passage, carrying with it a faint, almost musical chime. You glance around, puzzled, until you spot a cluster of small bells tied to a low-hanging tree branch. Their gentle, tinkling sound dances in the air, a contrast to the stark silence of surrounding rocks. They say, you murmur to yourself, that these bells were placed by travelers to guide lost souls back to path. Historians still argue whether this was a superstition or a practical marker to warn of the dangerous bend ahead, but the sound is soothing nonetheless. As you round the curve, the trail widens slightly, revealing a small clearing nestled between two outcroppings. A stone bench sits at its center, weathered by centuries of wind and sun, its surface marked with faint carvings, named perhaps, or fragments of messages long forgotten. You pause, allowing the donkey to rest and nibble at a patch of hardy grass growing in the shadow of the rocks. The quiet hum of the bells lingers in the background, blending with a faint rustle of wind-tossed leaves. You sit on the bench, gazing out at the vast expanse of desert stretching below. The sun bathed the landscape in gold and bronze, the distant dunes and hills softened by the haze of approaching twilight. Your thoughts drift to those who walked this route before you, couriers bearing messages of hope, war, trade, and love. You imagine them pausing here, perhaps scratching a name into the stone, a small defiance against the endless march of time. The donkey nudges your arm, as if reminding you of the journey ahead. You rise, brushing dust from your cloak, and continue along the trail. The sun dips lower, casting long, shifting shadows that dance along the cliff face. The air cools, carrying the scent of rain more strongly now. In the distance, a faint rumble of thunder echoes against the rocks, a soft, rolling growl that seems to chase you forward. You quicken your pace, guiding the donkey as the trail descends into a narrow ravine where the walls rise steep and high on either side. Here, the wind gathers and swirls, carrying the smell of wet stone and the promise of an impending storm. Your footsteps echo sharply in the confined space, the donkey's steady breathing the only other sound. The ravine opens into a small, sheltered hollow where the remains of an ancient way station stand. Its low stone walls are crumbling, its roof long since collapsed, but a single wooden post still stands beside the entrance, its surface carved with a symbol you recognize, the satrap's seal. They say, you murmur, tracing the lines with your fingertips, that these way stations were once kept stocked with supplies, a gift from the satraps to ensure their messages never faltered. Historians still debate whether these were acts of generosity or strategic necessity, but you feel a quiet gratitude nonetheless. You and the donkey shelter briefly beneath the remnants of the roof, listening as the first drops of rain begin to fall. The scent of wet stone and dust rises around you, mingling with a faint aroma of wild sage growing in the crevices. The donkey shakes his head, droplets scattering from his ears, and you smile, feeling a rare sense of camaraderie in the shared moment of shelter. When the rain lessens, you emerge from the way station, the trail now damp and gleaming underfoot. The air is fresher, the world washed clean by the brief storm. The donkey steps forward with renewed energy, his hooves splashing softly in the puddles as you follow the winding path deeper into the hill. As twilight deepens into evening, the landscape softens into shadows and silvered light. You catch glimpses of wildflowers glistening with rain, their delicate petals illuminated by the moon's glow. The donkey's pace slows once more, his head dipping slightly as if listening to the quiet symphony of night sounds, the whisper of wind through grass, the distant call of a night bird, the faint rustle of unseen creatures. You walk in silence, your thoughts drifting with the rhythm of the trail. The satchel at your side feels lighter now, its burden of words balanced by the knowledge that you are one of many in a long line of messengers who have trusted the road and their donkeys to carry secrets safely across the land. You feel the stories of the road gathering around you like a soft, comforting blanket, the past and present blending into one. The moon rises higher, casting a pale, serene light over the trail. The donkey walks with quiet confidence, his silhouette outlined against the silvered sky. You follow, your footsteps light, your breath slow and even. The night stretches before you, vast and open, a tapestry of stars and shadows, and you step into it willingly, the journey continuing beneath the watchful gaze of the moon. The moon's silver glow weaves patterns across the rocky path as you and your donkey move deeper into the night. The air is cool and scented with wet earth from the earlier rain, the moisture lingering like a whispered promise of renewal. Each step you take feels deliberate, measured, as though your pace matches the slow turn of the stars above. The satchel at your side swings gently with your movement, its contents sealed and silent, but their importance humming softly against your hip. Your donkey walks with a quiet assurance, his ears twitching at the faint rustle of wind-blown leaves and the distant cry of a night bird. The stillness of the world around you feels almost sacred, a moment suspended between waking and dream. You glance up at the moon, imagining it watching over the routes of countless couriers through the centuries, each step echoing the quiet determination of those who have come before. Ahead, the path descends into a narrow valley where low stone walls, remnants of ancient terraces, catch the moonlight like scattered bone. You pause at the edge, considering the route, and then guide your donkey downward, the trail winding like a serpent between crumbling stones and hardy shrubs. As you move, you notice the faint gleam of what might be an old bronze coin half buried in the date. You crouch to inspect it, brushing away the dust with your fingertips, revealing the worn impression of a satrap seal. They say, you whisper, that some messengers left tokens along the route as a sign they'd passed through safely. Historians still argue whether these coins were genuine waymarks or simply lost, but the story lingers in your mind as you slip the coin into your pouch. At the valley's center, a small, weathered stone building stands, its roof half-collapsed and its walls etched with centuries of wind-carved graffiti. You lead your donkey to a low trough fed by a thin trickle of spring water, letting him drink while you rest against the cool stone. The building's walls bear faint inscriptions, names perhaps, or coded messages left by messengers long gone. You run your fingers over the grooves, feeling the texture of history beneath your touch, and wonder what stories these walls could tell if they could speak. The night deepens, and the valley is bathed in moonlight, transforming the rough landscape into a dreamlike tapestry of silver and shadow. The donkey shifts his weight, his hooves crunching softly on the gravel path. You rise, feeling the chill of night air brushing against your skin, and secure the satchel more firmly at your side. The trail beckons onward, its curves and turns promising new discoveries and quiet moments of reflection. As you ascend from the valley, the path narrows once more, bordered by steep cliffs that rise like sentinels on either side. The moonlight casts long, shifting shadows that play tricks on your eyes, transforming stones into crouching figures and twisted branches into reaching hands. You feel a shiver run down your spine, but the donkey's steady breathing and the quiet jingle of his harness bells ground you. Together, you move forward, step by cautious step. Near the top of the climb, you spot a crude wooden post driven into the earth, a scrap of cloth tied around its top fluttering faintly in the breeze. A warning, you murmur to yourself, recalling old tales of smugglers and bandits who once haunted these passes. Or maybe just a marker left by another messenger. Historians still debate the purpose of these markers, but their presence adds a touch of mystery to the silent trail. You pass by with a respectful nod, as though acknowledging the silent guardian it represents. The path levels out onto a broad plateau where the moon's light spills unimpeded across the landscape. In the distance, you glimpse the faint glow of a campfire, its flicker softened by the haze of night. You hesitate briefly, weighing the risks, but the donkey steps forward as if deciding for you. You follow, drawn by the promise of companionship and a chance to rest. As you approach the campfire, you make out the shapes of travelers huddled around it. Merchants, perhaps, or other couriers sharing warmth and stories. One man, his robe embroidered with subtle geometric patterns, raises a hand in greeting. "Join us," he calls softly, his voice carrying a note of welcome. You settle near the fire, the donkey standing quietly beside you, his ears flicking as he listens to the murmured conversation. The travelers share tales of narrow escapes and hidden messages, of satraps' rivalries and secret codes woven into tapestries or painted on pottery. One woman, her hair tied with a strip of crimson silk, speaks of a message so delicate it was written on thin sheets of pressed flowers, hidden between layers of rice paper. They say, she murmurs, that the scent of the flowers will betray the message to anyone with a sharp enough nose. But no one ever found it. Her words are met with quiet laughter and thoughtful nods, the fire's light dancing in their eyes. You sip from a shared cup of warm tea, the taste laced with hints of mint and anise, and feel a sense of belonging settle over you. The donkey nudges your shoulder gently, as if to remind you that the journey is not yet over. You smile, acknowledging his unspoken encouragement, and feel a surge of gratitude for his quiet strength. As the fire burns low and the moon climbs higher, you prepare to leave. The travelers bid you safe journey, their voices soft and sincere. You guide your donkey back to the trail, the path ahead now bathed in the cool glow of moonlight. The silence of the night feels less lonely, filled instead with the echoes of shared stories and the quiet knowledge that you are part of a long, unbroken chain of messengers whose steps have shaped this land. You walk on, the donkey's steady pace carrying you forward, your thoughts filled with the scent of tea and firelight, the weight of history pressing lightly against your shoulder, and the soft hum of the moonlit road stretching ahead. The path ahead seems endless, its surface dappled with moonlight and shadow. Your donkey walks with steady determination, each step a soft echo against the packed earth. The quiet companionship you share feels like a whispered conversation, words left unspoken yet understood. The satchel at your side holds its precious cargo, its weight a constant reminder of the responsibility you bear. One message among thousands carried over the centuries, threading the empire together like an invisible web. The night deepens, and the sky above is littered with stars, their light piercing the inky darkness. You glance upward, tracing familiar constellations, each one a story told and retold by travelers around countless campfires. The donkey flicks his ears, sensing your stillness, and you smile, murmuring a quiet reassurance before continuing onward. They say, you whisper, that couriers once navigated by the stars alone, that donkeys guided more by instinct than by any map. Historians still argue whether those tales were truth or simply romantic embellishments, but the thought brings a quiet comfort. The path dips into a shallow ravine where the air is cooler, heavy with the scent of sage and damp earth. You hear the faint trickle of water, a narrow stream winding its way through the rocks. The donkey pauses to drink, his lips breaking the surface with soft ripple. You kneel nearby, splashing cool water on your face and feeling the tension ease from your muscles. The quiet gurgle of the stream blends with the night stillness, creating a moment of peace amid the long journey. As you rise, you notice faint marks on a flat stone nearby, scratches that suggest the outlines of a map, or perhaps coded symbols left by those who came before. You run your fingers over the grooves, imagining a time when messengers gathered here to exchange news or warnings. The donkey snorts softly, nudging your shoulder, as if to say it's time to move on. The trail climbs again, winding through a stand of low trees whose branches form a delicate canopy. Moonlight filters through the leaves, casting shifting patterns on the ground. You walk in silence, your steps softened by a carpet of fallen leaves and moss. The donkey's breathing is steady, a quiet rhythm that anchors you in the stillness. Your thoughts drift to the countless messages carried through these woods, declarations of war, offers of peace, promises of trade, whispers of rebellion. Near the top of the ridge, you catch sight of a stone marker carved with a satrap seal, its surface worn smooth by wind and rain. You pause, brushing away a layer of moss to reveal the symbol more clearly. They say, you murmur, that the satrap himself once traveled this route, his donkey laden with gifts for a distant ally. Historians still debate the veracity of this story, but you like to imagine the satrap's journey mirroring your own, a quiet echo through time. As you descend the ridge, the land opens into a broad, moonlit plain dotted with clusters of wildflowers that shimmer in the silver light. The air carries a faint scent of blossoms, mingling with the earthy aroma of the trail. You spot the faint glow of another caravanserai in the distance, its walls outlined against the dark horizon. The donkey's ears perk up, and you feel a surge of relief at the prospect of shelter and company. Upon reaching the caravanserai, you're greeted by the soft murmurs of travelers gathered around a central fire. The scent of roasting meat and fresh bread wafts through the air, mingling with the laughter of merchants recounting tales of narrow escapes and surprising fortune. You guide your donkey to a quiet corner, ensuring he has water and a place to rest, before joining the others near the fire. A man with a neatly trimmed beard and a deep voice offers you a seat and a cup of warm tea. Another long road, he says, his tone knowing. You nod, feeling the weight of shared experience settle between you. Around the fire, travelers swap stories of the road, tales of donkeys who refuse to budge, of messages hidden in the seams of cloaks, of whispered deals struck in the shadows. One woman, her voice soft but clear, recounts a legend of a message carried by a donkey that walked for days without food or water, driven only by loyalty to its master. They say, she concludes, that the donkey finally collapsed at the palace gates, its message still sealed and unbroken. Historians still argue whether it's true or just a tale to inspire loyalty. The listeners nod, Some skeptical, others silently moved. The fire crackles, sending sparks into the night, as you sip your tea and feel the warmth spread through your limbs. Later, you step outside to check on your donkey, finding him resting quietly under the stars. His steady breathing and gentle presence offer reassurance, a reminder that you're not alone in this journey. The moon casts a silvery glow over the caravanserai's courtyard, illuminating the walls and the gathered travelers. You feel the stories of the road weaving around you, threads of connection that bind the past and present together. As you prepare to rest for a few hours before continuing, you lean against a stone wall, the cool surface grounding you. The scent of jasmine drifts from a nearby vine, mingling with a lingering aroma of bread and tea. Your eyes grow heavy, and for a brief moment, you allow yourself to drift into a light sleep, the donkey's quiet presence nearby, the hum of voices fading into the background, and the stories of the ancient Persian postal routes whispering through your dream. You wake slowly, the chill of the early morning air pressing against your skin. The faint light of dawn stretches pale fingers across the sky, painting it with the softest shades of pink and gold. The caravanserai is quiet, the travelers asleep or stirring silently in their corners. Your donkey lifts his head, his breath forming small clouds in the cool air, and you offer him a quiet greeting, your voice a soft whisper in the stillness. The satchel at your side feels heavier with the weight of messages yet undelivered, but your resolve is steady, anchored by the quiet companionship of your four-legged companion. You break your fast with a crust of bread and a handful of dried figs, sharing a few bites with your donkey, who accepts them with quiet gratitude. The scent of the bread mingles with the cool air, the faint sweetness of the figs a small comfort as you prepare to leave. They say, you murmur, brushing crumbs from your fingers, that Persian couriers once carried pomegranates as tokens of safe passage, symbols of life and fertility meant to appease the gods of the road. Historians still debate whether this custom was real or simply a poetic addition to the tales of the postal routes, but it adds a touch of magic to your journey as you slip a single pomegranate seed into your pocket. The road ahead stretches wide and welcoming, the dust of yesterday's footsteps softened by the night's dew. You and your donkey move with a quiet ease, your steps matching the gentle rhythm of the waking day. The trail winds through low hills where wildflowers bloom in clusters of blue and yellow, their petals catching the morning light like tiny lanterns. The air is filled with the scent of fresh grass and the faint buzz of bees busy at work. You pass by an ancient stone well, its rim worn smooth by centuries of hands drawing water. The donkey pauses to drink, his ears flicking at the sound of a lark singing from a nearby bush. You rest against the cool stone, your eyes tracing faint carvings on its surface, symbols of protection, perhaps, or messages left by travelers long gone. They say, you whisper, that those who drink from this well will be granted safe passage through the wildest stretches of the road. Historians still argue whether such wells were truly enchanted or simply vital stops along the courier's route, but the thought lingers as you share a sip of the cool, clear water. The path leads you into a narrow valley where towering cliffs rise on either side, their faces marked with jagged cracks and narrow ledges. The air is cooler here, filled with the scent of damp stone and the faint rustle of wind through crevices. The donkey steps carefully, his hooves striking sparks against the rock as he navigates the uneven terrain. You guide him with quiet word, your hand brushing his flank, steadying him as you descend deeper into the shadowed pass. Halfway through the valley, you spot a faint trail leading off the main path, marked by a line of stone set in a careful curve. You hesitate, considering, then decide to follow it, curiosity tugging at your steps. The trail winds upward, leading to a small plateau where a single tree stands, its branches twisted and gnarled, its roots gripping the rocky soil like ancient fingers. Beneath its shade lies a low stone cairn, carefully stacked and topped with a smooth, flat rock etched with a single word, Safai. Journey. You kneel before the cairn, your fingers tracing the carved letters. They say, you murmur, that this is a marker left by a messenger who never returned. His message lost to time, but his memory kept alive by those who followed. Historians still debate whether the story is true or a legend woven into the fabric of the postal routes, but you feel a quiet reverence as you leave a small token, a smooth pebble from the stream, a whispered acknowledgement of the journey shared. Returning to the main path, you and your donkey continue through the narrowing valley, the light filtering through in shifting patterns of gold and green. The silence here is profound, broken only by the soft clatter of hooves on stone and the occasional call of a bird echoing through the cliffs. You feel a sense of solitude, a connection to the ancient travelers who once navigated these same twists and turns, their footsteps whispering beneath yours. The valley opens suddenly into a wide plain where a shallow river winds through fields of wild grass and scattered trees. The donkey steps into the water, the cool current swirling around his legs, and you follow, the splash of your boots a quiet counterpoint to the soft gurgle of the stream. The air is rich with the scent of river mud and the faint sweetness of blooming reed. You imagine messengers stopping here to wash dust from their clothes, to refill their water skins, to rest before the next leg of their journey. On the far bank, a small stone shrine stands beneath the shade of a willow tree, its surface adorned with offerings, bundles of herbs, small coins, a carved wooden donkey left as a tribute. You pause, bowing your head in silent respect, and offer a simple prayer for safe passage, for strength, for the safe delivery of your message. The donkey shakes his head, droplets scattering from his ears, and you smile, feeling a quiet gratitude for his presence, his steady heart. The road climbs again, the landscape shifting into rolling hills where vineyards spread in neat rows, their leaves shimmering in the morning light. You catch the scent of ripening grapes, the sweetness mingling with the warm earth and the faintest hint of crushed herbs. The donkey's pace quickens slightly, sensing the familiarity of cultivated land, the promise of easier trails. You pass vineyard workers bent over their task, their voices rising in soft songs that blend with the rustle of leaves. One man, his hat tipped low against the sun, calls out a greeting, his tone warm and welcoming. He offers a cluster of grapes, the fruit cool and bursting with juice, and you share it with your donkey. The sweetness a moment of simple pleasure. They say, the man remarks, that the best couriers know the value of friendship along the road. Historians still debate whether such gestures were common or rare. But in this moment, the kindness feels as enduring as the road itself. As the sun climbs higher, the path leads you away from the vineyards, back into the wildest stretches of the trail. The air is warm, the scent of sun-baked earth rising with each step. You and your donkey walk side by side, the landscape unfolding before you like a story waiting to be told. Each bend in the road promising a new chapter, a new discovery, a new connection to the ancient threads of the Persian postal routes mapped by donkeys and driven by the quiet, enduring determination of messengers like yourself. The warmth of the midday sun settles around you as you and your donkey continue along the winding trail, the scent of sun-baked earth mingling with a faint aroma of wildflowers blooming in patches by the roadside. The satchel at your side swings with each step, a quiet, constant reminder of the stories and messages it holds. Your donkey plods steadily, his hooves raising small puffs of dust with every step. The gentle sound blends with the distant drone of insects and the occasional birdsong, weaving a tapestry of quiet that stretches across the landscape. Ahead, the path dips into a shallow valley where tall grasses ripple like a sea of green and gold. A narrow stone bridge arches over a slow-moving stream, its surface worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. You guide your donkey onto the bridge, pausing to admire the view, reflections of sky and reed shimmer on the water's surface, disturbed only by the occasional darting fish or the lazy swirl of a drifting leaf. They say, you murmur to yourself, that this bridge was built by order of an ancient satrap whose daughter loved to watch the moon's reflection dance on the water. Historians still argue whether the story is a romantic embellishment or holds a grain of truth, but as you watch the ripples shift and play beneath the donkey's hooves, it's easy to imagine her gazing into water from centuries past. On the far side of the bridge, the path climbs into a stand of tall trees whose branches arch overhead, forming a natural tunnel of dappled light and shadow. The air is cooler here, scented with pine and damp earth. Your donkey's ears twitch as a squirrel scampers across the trail ahead, and you catch a brief glimpse of its bushy tail before it disappears into the underbrush. The canopy opens to reveal a small clearing where a cluster of stone markers stands, their surfaces etched with worn symbols and faint lines of text. You dismount, stepping closer to trace the carvings with your fingertips, feeling the rough texture beneath your skin. One symbol catches your eye, a stylized donkey's head enclosed within a circle. They say, you whisper, that this mark was used by a network of trusted couriers who carried messages too delicate to entrust to just anyone. Historians still debate the extent of these secret courier networks, but you feel a quiet thrill at the thought of belonging, even in spirit, to such a lineage. You leave a small offering, a smooth pebble from the stream, a token of respect for the unknown messengers who came before, and continue along the path. The donkey plods forward, his hooves striking a steady rhythm that blends with the soft whisper of the wind through the trees. The air hums with the quiet energy of the road, the sense of countless footsteps worn into the earth over the century. Further along, the trail widens, revealing a cluster of low stone buildings nestled among flowering shrubs. The walls are sun-bleached and weathered, their roofs sagging under the weight of years, but a faint trail of smoke rises from a chimney, and the scent of baking bread mingles with the fragrance of blossom. You approach cautiously, the donkey's ears pricked forward in curiosity. A woman with a flour-dusted apron steps from one of the doorways, her expression a mix of surprise and welcome. She gestures toward a shaded bench and offers you a small loaf of warm, crusty bread. "For the road," she says, her voice low and melodic. You accept it with a nod of gratitude, sharing a few bites with your donkey. The bread is soft and fragrant, the taste rich with honey and herbs. "They say," she remarks with a smile, "that bread shared with a traveler carries blessings for both giver and receiver." Historians still debate the origins of this saying, but the warmth of her gesture lingers long after you resume your journey. The path ahead leads into a stretch of rocky terrain where boulders stand like silent sentinels, their surfaces etched with lines of lichen and moss. You and your donkey pick your way carefully between the stones, your progress slow but steady. The air grows warmer, the sun climbing higher, casting sharp shadows that dance and shift with every step. At the crest of a hill, you pause to catch your breath and admire the view. Below, the land spreads wide and open, a patchwork of fields and orchards bathed in sunlight. You catch a glimpse of a distant village, its whitewashed walls gleaming against a backdrop of rolling hill. They say, you murmur, that this was once the heart of a thriving trade route where messages and goods flowed like water. Historians still debate the extent of the ancient trade networks, but the thought of your path tracing the footsteps of merchants and messengers alike brings a quiet sense of continuity. Descending from the hill, the road flattens into a wide, dusty track bordered by low stone walls and wild hedges. You pass a group of children playing near a field, their laughter ringing through the air like bells. One of them, a boy with a gap-toothed grin, runs up to pet the donkey's nose, his small hands quick and sure. They say donkeys carry secrets, he whispers, his voice conspiratorial. Maybe your donkey knows him. You chuckle softly, ruffling the boy's hair before continuing on, the sound of his laughter fading behind you. The road stretches before you, straight and sunlit, the air filled with the scent of dust and the distant murmur of water. Your donkey's steps are steady, his head bobbing in a quiet rhythm that matches your own breath. You feel the weight of history pressing lightly against your shoulders, the stories of ancient couriers carried not just in the satchel at your side, but in the very land beneath your feet. As the sun dips lower, casting long golden shadows across the path, you feel a sense of quiet anticipation building in the air. The journey continues, each step a thread woven into the rich tapestry of the Persian postal routes, each breath a testament to the endurance of those who carried messages across time and distance. You walk on, your donkey at your side, the road stretching ever forward into the fading light of the day. The air cools as the sun dips toward the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and lavender. You and your donkey move steadily along the road, the long shadows stretching like dark rivers across the dusty path. The satchel at your side, heavy with its message, feels both familiar and urgent, a quiet reminder of your purpose as the road unwinds before you like an ancient scroll waiting to be read. Your donkey's ears twitch at the faint rustle of wind through the hedgerows, his pace steady and unhurried, as though he senses the night drawing close. Ahead, the road curves gently around a low hill crowned with a stand of cypress trees, their dark shapes stark against the fading sky. As you approach, the scent of wood smoke and roasting meat drifts toward you, mingling with the cool evening air. A small camp has been set up at the base of the hill, where a group of travelers huddle around a fire, their voices low and filled with quiet laughter. You guide your donkey closer, feeling the pull of warmth and companionship in the gathering dusk. A man with a weathered face and a scar that cuts across his cheek waves you over, offering a seat by the fire. His eyes are sharp but kind, and his voice carries the lilt of someone used to the rhythms of the road. You accept with a nod, settling onto a low stone as your donkey finds a patch of grass nearby. They say, the man murmurs as he passes you a skewer of grilled vegetables and flatbread, that travelers who share a meal on the road are bound by a silent pact of trust. Historians still argue whether such pacts were real or simply comforting myths, but the warmth of the fire and the easy camaraderie of the group make the thought feel true. As you eat, the conversation turns to tales of the road, of donkeys so loyal they returned home alone after their master's death, of messages hidden inside hollow walking sticks, of couriers who vanished without a trace but left behind whispered legends of secret missions and lost treasures. One woman, her long braid glinting copper in the firelight, speaks of a courier whose route was so secret even he didn't know its final destination until he reached it. They say, she adds, her voice hushed, that he followed a trail of lanterns set out each night, guiding him through the dark. The others nod thoughtfully, the story weaving itself into the quiet crackle of the fire. The donkey, sensing your relaxation, shifts closer, his warm breath tickling your shoulder. You reach out to scratch behind his ears, feeling the softness of his fur beneath your fingers. The fire's glow dances on his coat, turning it to molten gold in the flickering light. They say donkeys are stubborn, you murmur, but maybe they are just wise enough to know which path to follow. Your words earn a quiet laugh from the travelers, a shared moment of understanding that stretches like a thread between strangers. As the meal winds down, one of the travelers, a young man with bright eyes and a quick smile, produces a small flute from his pack. He begins to play a soft, lilting tune that drifts into the night like a sigh carried on the breeze. The melody is simple, almost childlike. Yet it tugs at something deep within you, a memory of a lullaby half-remembered from childhood or song hummed by a mother while brushing her child's hair. The donkey's ears twitch in rhythm, and you feel your own breath slow, matching the gentle cadence of the music. The sky deepens into indigo, the first stars pricking the velvet darkness like scattered pearls. The travelers begin to settle in for the night, wrapping themselves in cloaks and blankets, their laughter fading into quiet murmurs. You find a comfortable spot near the fire, your donkey lying nearby, his steady breathing a soft counterpoint to the night stillness. The satchel at your side feels less like a burden and more like a promise, a link in a chain that stretches across time and space, connecting you to messengers past and future. Before sleep claims you, the man with a scarred cheek leans over and murmurs. They say the road speaks to those who listen closely. The rustle of grass, the whisper of wind, the creak of saddle, all of it telling stories if you know how to hear them. His voice fades as he settles back, his breathing slowing into the quiet rhythm of sleep. You close your eyes, the fire's warmth on your skin, the scent of wood smoke and roasted vegetables lingering in the air. The night hums softly around you, a lullaby composed of the sounds of the road, the gentle presence of your donkey, and the unbroken thread of history that binds you to every messenger who has ever walked these paths. As dawn approaches, you stir, the sky above lightening with the first hints of morning. The travelers begin to rouse, stretching and stoking the embers of the fire, preparing for the day's journey ahead. You rise with them, brushing the dust from your cloak and checking the satchel's ties to ensure your message remains secure. The donkey shakes his head, ears flicking as though eager to continue. Together, you set out once more, the road stretching before you, golden with the light of the rising sun. Each step carrying you closer to your destination and deeper into the stories whispered by the ancient Persian postal route. The sun climbs high as you and your donkey continue along the dusty road, the sky a wide expanse of pale blue streak with the faintest wisps of cloud. The air is warmer now, carrying the scent of dry grass and the faint tang of distant rain. The satchel at your side swings with each step, its weight familiar and steady, a quiet reminder of the message it holds. Your donkey's ears twitch as a flock of birds rise from a nearby field, their wings flashing silver in the sunlight before they disappear into the sky. You pass through a stretch of low hills dotted with clusters of olive trees, their silvery leaves rustling softly in the breeze. A shepherd stands atop one hill, leaning on his staff, his flock spread out like scattered pearls across the slope. He lifts a hand in greeting as you pass, his smile quiet and knowing. They say, you murmur to yourself, that shepherds along the postal routes were often trusted allies, passing messages hidden in song or carved into the bark of olive trees. Historians still argue whether these secret messages were real or simply tales told to make the route seem more mysterious. But the idea lingers in your mind as you walk on. The path narrows, threading between tall stands of golden reeds that sway like dancers in the breeze. The sound of the wind rustling through them is soft and soothing, like a whispered lullaby. You catch glimpses of the donkey's dark ears flicking among the reeds, his steady pace a quiet reassurance. The satchel feels lighter in this moment, as though the weight of history and responsibility is shared by the road itself. Ahead, the reeds part to reveal a shallow river crossed by a simple wooden footbridge. The water glimmers in the sunlight, its surface broken by the occasional darting fish or the ripple of a breeze. You guide your donkey carefully across, the wood creaking under his weight but holding firm. On the far side, a small shrine stands beneath a willow tree, its branches trailing like green ribbon. You pause to offer silent thanks, placing a small stone at the shrine's base as a token of respect. They say, You murmur that travelers who pause to honor the spirits of the road are granted safe passage and swift delivery. Historians still debate whether this belief had any grounding in fact or was simply a comfort for weary messengers, but you feel a quiet peace settle over you as you continue, the donkey's steady steps blending with the soft rustle of the willow's leaves. The path leads you into a small village where whitewashed houses cluster around a central square. The air is filled with the scent of baking bread and the cheerful calls of market vendors. Children chase one another through the narrow streets, their laughter mingling with the clatter of carts and the rhythmic thud of looms. You guide your donkey carefully through the bustle, pausing to exchange quiet greetings with a woman selling fresh dates from a woven basket. She offers you a handful, her smile warm and open. They say, she remarks, that dates shared on the road are a sign of good fortune and long friendship. Historians still argue whether such customs were common practice or simply stories told to pass the time. But the sweetness of the dates lingers on your tongue as you walk on, the satchel at your side a quiet companion to the small kindness shared. Beyond the village, the landscape changes once again, the road rising into low hills covered with fields of golden grain. The wind dances across the tall stalks, setting them rippling like waves on the quiet sea. You and your donkey walk in silence, the rhythmic swish of grain against your legs blending with the steady clip of hooves on the packed earth. The satchel's weight feels almost familiar now, its presence a steady counterpoint to the gentle roll of the land. At the crest of one hill, you pause to catch your breath, gazing out over the patchwork fields below. The sky stretches wide and open, the distant mountains hazy blue on the horizon. They say, you murmur, that from here, a courier could see the whole route laid out before them, each stop a thread in the empire's tapestry. Historians still debate the accuracy of these claims, but the thought of standing where countless messengers once stood, their eyes tracing the same paths, fills you with quiet reverence. You descend the hill, the air filled with the scent of warm earth and the distant promise of rain. The road narrows between low stone walls where lizards bask in the sun, their scales gleaming like polished gems. Your donkey plods on, his ears flicking as he catches the faint sounds of water ahead. The road dips into a shaded glen where a clear stream runs over smooth stones, its surface dappled with sunlight filtered through the leaves above. You pause to let your donkey drink, kneeling beside the stream to splash cool water on your face and fill your water skin. The water tastes of stone and sky, a clean, sharp contrast to the dust of the road. As you rest, you notice faint carvings on a flat stone by the stream's edge, symbols so worn they are almost invisible. They say, you whisper, that these were left by couriers marking the way for those who followed, each mark a silent guidepost in the wilderness. Historians still argue whether such symbols were deliberate or simply the result of idle hand, but the thought makes you smile as you trace the faded lines with your finger. Refreshed, you and your donkey resume the journey, the sun casting long shadows across the path as it dips toward the horizon. The air grows cooler, the scent of rain more pronounced, mingling with the earthy aroma of the field. You catch sight of a distant village, its rooftops glowing gold in the evening light, and feel a quiet surge of determination. The road stretches on, each step carrying you deeper into the ancient network of Persian postal routes, each breath weaving you further into the timeless story of messengers, donkeys, and the silent promise of delivery. The air hums with a low, steady rhythm as you and your donkey crest the next rise, the fading sun casting long shadows that stretch like lazy fingers across the field. The satchel at your side sways gently, a quiet pulse against your hip, its weight now familiar, almost comforting. The path levels out into a gentle slope where clusters of fruit trees dot the landscape, fig, pomegranate, and apricot, their branches heavy with ripening fruit. The breeze carries the sweet scent of blossoms and the sharper tang of overripe fruit left for birds and insects. A young boy sits cross-legged beneath a gnarled fig tree, his hands busy weaving slender willow branches into a small basket. As you pass, he looks up with a shy smile and gestures to the low branches overhead. They say, he offered, his voice soft, that a fig picked by moonlight brings luck to travelers. Historians still argue whether the superstition was rooted in tradition or simply an old tale to charm wanderers, but you reach up and gently pluck a fig, its skin warm from the sun. The boy grins, his hands returning to their weaving, and you slip the fig into your pocket as a quiet talisman. The road narrows, threading between low stone walls and stands of tall grasses swaying like dancers in the gathering dusk. The donkey's hooves make a soft, steady beat against the packed earth, and the scent of damp soil rises as the evening air cools. You catch glimpses of a small stream running parallel to the path, its water reflecting the pastel hues of the sky. Fireflies dance above the grass, their tiny lights flickering like whispered stories caught between night and day. Further along, the path dips into a shallow hollow where a wide, flat rock sits at its center. You pause, resting your hand on the stone sun-warmed surface. Its smoothness speaks of countless travelers who pause here before you, their footsteps worn into the landscape like a collective memory. They say, you murmur, that messengers once stopped at this very spot to share whispered news and secret messages under cover of night. Historians still debate the validity of these claims, but you find yourself listening, as though the rock itself might share a secret if you lean in close enough. A gentle breeze stays the air, carrying the faintest scent of sage and rosemary from nearby shrubs. You follow the curve of the path as it climbs gently, leading to a low stone archway that marks the entrance to a way station. The building beyond is simple. Mud brick walls, a thatched roof, and a heavy wooden door that creaks softly as it opens. The keeper, a stooped man with eyes sharp despite his age, greets you with a nod and a quiet word. You offer a few coins and receive in return a bowl of lentil stew and a place by the fire. As you eat, the keeper shares stories of the road, of messengers who brave floods and sandstorms, of donkeys so loyal they wait days for a lost master, of messages smuggled inside hollowed bread loaves or hidden beneath saddles. They say, he muses, that the best couriers could read the stars like a map, finding their way even on the darkest night. Historians still debate the truth of these tales, but in the quiet glow of the hearth, with a donkey resting nearby and the soft murmur of voices blending with the crackle of the fire, it feels as though the stars themselves might be listening. You settle into sleep on a pallet of straw and wool, the warmth of the fire against your skin and the faint scent of herbs lingering in the air. The donkey shifts nearby, his breath slow and steady, a comforting presence in the dark. Dreams drift over you like the hush of the evening breeze, filled with images of winding paths, of moonlit crossings, of quiet messages whispered into ears of trusted donkeys. At dawn, you rise, stretching the stiffness from your limbs and brushing the sleep from your eyes. The keeper offers a mug of warm goat's milk and a slice of bread spread with honey. You thank him quietly, sharing a bit of the bread with your donkey, who accepts it with a gentle nuzzle. They say, the keeper remarks, that honey shared on the road binds friends in sweetness and trust. Historians still argue whether this saying has any real origin, but the honey lingers on your tongue like a quiet blessing. The road ahead glows with the first light of morning, the sky painted in shades of rose and gold. You and your donkey set out once more, your steps light and sure, the satchel at your side a steady companion. The landscape unfolds like a living map, its twists and turns guided by the quiet rhythm of hoofbeats and the steady pull of purpose. The stories of the road hum around you, a soft chorus of past and present blending into the timeless journey of the Persian postal route. As the day warms, you pass a field where a group of farmers work, their voices rising in song as they tend to the crops. One woman calls out, offering a handful of ripe apricots. You accept with a nod, tasting the fruit sweetness as you walk on. They say, she calls after you, that apricots picked from a stranger's hand bring good fortune for the journey. Historians still debate whether this custom was rooted in reality or simply a charming tale, but the taste lingers, a small, sweet echo of kindness shared on the road. You and your donkey move steadily forward, the path unwinding before you like a ribbon of dust and promise. The world hums with quiet life, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a hawk, the soft pad of your donkey's hooves against the earth. The sun climbs higher, the shadows shortening as you press on, each step weaving you deeper into the tapestry of messengers, donkeys, and the stories that bind them to the ancient roads of Persia. The sun hangs high overhead, casting sharp shadows across the path as you and your donkey make your way through a rugged landscape of red sandstone cliffs and scrubby underbrush. The satchel at your side feels almost like an extension of yourself now, its weight a familiar companion in the long journey. The donkey's ears flick as he steps carefully over uneven ground, the soft clatter of loose stones echoing in the quiet. You pause at a bend where the road narrows to a rocky ledge overlooking a deep ravine. A cool breeze stays the air, carrying with it the faint scent of juniper and dust. They say, You murmur that messengers once paused here to rest, marking their passage with tiny cairns built from the stones at their feet. You glance around, spotting a few such piles of rocks balanced on the ledge. Historians still debate whether these were truly waymarks or simply idle creations of travelers, but you feel compelled to add your own, stacking 3 smooth stones into a small tower before moving on. The trail widens as you descend into the ravine, where a narrow stream trickles over polished stone. You guide your donkey to drink, kneeling beside the water to splash your face. The coolness seeps into your skin, washing away the heat and dust of the road. You notice faint etchings on a boulder nearby, symbols worn by time and water. They say, you whisper, that these symbols were messages left for those who knew how to read them, a silent language of lines and curves that only couriers could understand. Historians still argue about the true meaning of such markings, but in this moment, the idea feels as tangible as the water running over your hand. Climbing out of the ravine, you enter a grove of cypress trees, their dark green needles rustling softly overhead. The air is cooler here, the light dappled through the branches. Your donkey steps more lightly on the shaded ground, his ears relax. Ahead, you spot a small stone shelter built into the hillside, its walls sun-bleached and moss-covered. You approach cautiously, peering inside to find a wooden bench and a rough-hewn table scattered with dried herbs and empty clay cups. It feels as though someone left only moments ago, the air still carrying the faint scent of mint and sage. They say, you murmur, that such shelters were used by couriers to rest and tend their animals, sharing stories with fellow travelers in the quiet spaces between destinations. Historians still debate whether these places were officially sanctioned or simply informal waypoints, but you settle onto the bench for a moment, feeling the cool stone beneath you and the comforting presence of your donkey nearby. Further along the path, the landscape shifts again, opening into a broad plateau where low stone walls enclose patches of cultivated land. You see fields of saffron crocuses, their purple blossoms a vivid contrast to the dusty earth, and the air is filled with a faint, spicy sweetness. A woman stoops among the flowers, her fingers stain gold as she plucks the delicate stigmas and drops them into a woven basket. She glances up, offering a small handful of blossom. "For luck," she says softly, her voice blending with a hum of bees. They say saffron carried by a messenger brings safe passage and good fortune. Historians still argue whether saffron was truly used in such ritual, but you accept the gift, tucking the blossoms carefully into the folds of your satchel. The road narrows once more, threading between jagged outcrops where lizards sun themselves on warm rocks. The donkey steps carefully, his hooves clicking softly against the stone. You catch glimpses of movement among the rocks, shadows of birds, perhaps, or the fleeting shape of a fox slipping into the underbrush. The air hums with the quiet energy of the land, each sound a thread in the tapestry of the journey. You descend into a narrow valley where spring bubbles up from the ground, its water clear and cool. A stone basin has been carved to catch the flow, and a wooden ladle rests nearby. You pause to drink, the water sharp and refreshing, its taste of minerals and mountain air. The donkey drinks too, his breath sending small ripples across the surface. They say, you murmur, that springs like this were sacred to travelers, offering not just water but blessings for the journey ahead. Historians still debate whether such beliefs were superstition or tradition, but the spring's quiet presence feels like a blessing in itself. As the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, the light shifts to a rich golden hue, casting long shadows across the path. You catch sight of a cluster of low stone houses perched on a hillside, their windows glowing softly with lamplight. Smoke curls from a few chimneys, and the scent of roasting meat and baking bread drifts on the breeze. You approach cautiously, the donkey steps slowing as though sensing the end of the day's journey. A man in a dark cloak stands at the edge of the village, his arms crossed, his expression wary. You offer a quiet greeting and explain your purpose, showing the satchel seal. His features soften, and he gestures toward a stable where your donkey can rest. Inside, the air is warm with the scent of hay and animals, and you settle the donkey with a pat before stepping back into the twilight. They say, the man remarks as he leads you to a small inn, that messengers once carried secrets so valuable that entire villages would shelter them for a night, guarding both traveler and messengers though their own lives depended on it. Historians still debate whether such stories were truth or legend, but as you accept a bowl of stew and a seat by the fire, the warmth of the welcome feels as real as any history ever written. The night deepens outside, the stars bright against the dark sky. You lean back, the weight of the satchel resting against your hip, the soft murmur of voices around you blending with the crackle of the hearth. The road stretches ahead, full of promise and secrets, and as sleep begins to claim you, you feel the steady, quiet presence of the donkey nearby, his breath a soft rhythm in the night stillness. The sun hangs high overhead, casting sharp shadows across the path as you and your donkey make your way through a rugged landscape of red sandstone cliffs and scrubby underbrush. The satchel at your side feels almost like an extension of yourself now, its weight a familiar companion in the long journey. The donkey's ears flick as he steps carefully over uneven ground, the soft clatter of loose stones echoing in the quiet. You pause at a bend where the road narrows to a rocky ledge overlooking a deep ravine. A cool breeze stays the air, carrying with it the faint scent of juniper and dust. They say, you murmur, that messengers once paused here to rest, marking their passage with tiny cairns built from the stones at their feet. You glance around, spotting a few such piles of rocks balanced on the ledge. Historians still debate whether these were truly waymarks or simply idle creations of travelers, but you feel compelled to add your own, stacking 3 smooth stones into a small tower before moving on. The trail widens as you descend into the ravine, where a narrow stream trickles over polished stone. You guide your donkey to drink, kneeling beside the water to splash your face. The coolness seeps into your skin, washing away the heat and dust of the road. You notice faint etchings on a boulder nearby, symbols worn by time and water. They say, you whisper, that these symbols were messages left for those who knew how to read them, a silent language of lines and curves that only couriers could understand. Historians still argue about the true meaning of such markings, but in this moment, the idea feels as tangible as the water running over your hand. Climbing out of the ravine, you enter a grove of cypress trees, their dark green needles rustling softly overhead. The air is cooler here, the light dappled through the branches. Your donkey steps more lightly on the shaded ground, his ears relax. Ahead, you spot a small stone shelter built into the hillside, its walls sun-bleached and moss-covered. You approach cautiously, peering inside to find a wooden bench and a rough-hewn table scattered with dried herbs and empty clay cups. It feels as though someone left only moments ago, the air still carrying the faint scent of mint and sage. They say, you murmur, that such shelters were used by couriers to rest and tend their animals, sharing stories with fellow travelers in the quiet spaces between destinations. Historians still debate whether these places were officially sanctioned or simply informal waypoints, but you settle onto the bench for a moment, feeling the cool stone beneath you and the comforting presence of your donkey nearby. Further along the path, the landscape shifts again, opening into a broad plateau where low stone walls enclose patches of cultivated land. You see fields of saffron crocuses, their purple blossoms a vivid contrast to the dusty earth, and the air is filled with a faint, spicy sweetness. A woman stoops among the flowers, her fingers stained gold as she plucks the delicate stigmas and drops them into a woven basket. She glances up, offering a small handful of blossom. For luck, she says softly, her voice blending with the hum of bees. They say saffron carried by a messenger brings safe passage and good fortune. Historians still argue whether saffron was truly used in such rituals, but you accept the gift, tucking the blossoms carefully into the folds of your satchel. The road narrows once more, threading between jagged outcrops where lizards sun themselves on warm rocks. The donkey steps carefully, his hooves clicking softly against the stone. You catch glimpses of movement among the rocks, shadows of birds, perhaps, or the fleeting shape of a fox slipping into the underbrush. The air hums with the quiet energy of the land, each sound a thread in the tapestry of the journey. You descend into a narrow valley where a spring bubbles up from the ground, its water clear and cool. A stone basin has been carved to catch the flow, and a wooden ladle rests nearby. You pause to drink, the water sharp and refreshing, its taste of minerals and mountain air. The donkey drinks too, his breath sending small ripples across the surface. They say, you murmur, that springs like this were sacred to travelers, offering not just water but blessings for the journey ahead. Historians still debate whether such beliefs were superstition or tradition, but the spring's quiet presence feels like a blessing in itself. As the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, the light shifts to a rich, golden hue, casting long shadows across the path. You catch sight of a cluster of low stone houses perched on a hillside, their windows glowing softly with lamplight. Smoke curls from a few chimneys, and the scent of roasting meat and baking bread drifts on the breeze. You approach cautiously, the donkey's steps slowing as though sensing the end of the day's journey. A man in a dark cloak stands at the edge of the village, his arms crossed, his expression wary. You offer a quiet greeting and explain your purpose, showing the satchel seal. His features soften, and he gestures toward a stable where your donkey can rest. Inside, the air is warm with the scent of hay and animals, and you settle the donkey with a pat before stepping back into the twilight. They say, the The man remarks as he leads you to a small inn that messengers once carried secrets so valuable that entire villages would shelter them for a night, guarding both traveler and message as though their own lives depended on it. Historians still debate whether such stories were truth or legend, but as you accept a bowl of stew and a seat by the fire, the warmth of the welcome feels as real as any history ever written. The night deepens outside, the stars bright against the dark sky. You lean back, the weight of the satchel resting against your hip, the soft murmur of voices around you blending with the crackle of the hearth. The road stretches ahead, full of promise and secrets, and as sleep begins to claim you, you feel the steady, quiet presence of the donkey nearby, his breath a soft rhythm in the night stillness. The satchel rests beside you, its weight a reminder of the journey still ahead, its contents a thread woven into the vast, ancient network of stories whispered along the Persian postal routes. The morning light seeps gently into the stone-walled room, brushing your eyelids with the pale gold of dawn. You stay, the cool air crisps against your skin as you rise quietly from your blanket. The satchel rests beside you, its strap curled like a sleeping serpent, and the steady breathing of your donkey, faintly audible from the stable beyond, grounds you in the continuity of this journey. The innkeeper, already bustling about with a clatter of clay mugs and the scent of barley porridge, nods a silent greeting as you step into the common room. Outside, the village hums with the quiet rhythms of early wake, farmers tending fields of barley and chickpeas, women drawing water from a communal well, children chasing each other with bright scarves trailing behind them. They say, you murmur as you adjust a satchel strap across your chest, that messengers often rose with the sun, their steps blessed by the morning light. Historians still argue whether dawn held any special significance for postal couriers, but the thought lingers like a half-remembered prayer. You lead your donkey from the stable, his coat brushed to a soft sheen, his hooves tapping a quiet rhythm on the stone path as you guide him toward the village's edge. The road beyond curved between stands of tall poplars, their slender trunks rising like pillars against the brightening sky. The breeze stirs their leaves into a soft, whispering music that follows you as you walk. In a small clearing where the trees part, you come upon an old stone marker, its surface worn smooth but still bearing faint traces of carved symbol. You pause, running your fingers over the cool stone. They say these markers were the mapmaker's signposts left behind to guide messengers along the hidden route. Historians still debate whether these were official markers or simply relics of forgotten times, but you feel a quiet comfort in tracing their worn edges. The road rises into a low pass where patches of wild thyme and sage grow among the rocks. The scent rises with a warming air, mingling with the donkey's breath and the faint jingle of his harness. The satchel rests against your side, a gentle weight that seems to pulse with the rhythm of your steps. Ahead, a stone bridge arches over a dry creek bed, its surface marked by the hoof prints of countless travelers. As you cross, the donkey's hooves echo hollowly against the stones, a sound that seems to merge with the rustling leaves and the distant call of a hawk. On the far side of the bridge, a shepherd boy stands beside a flock of thin, hardy goats nibbling at tufts of grass. He watches you pass with curious eyes, his wooden staff resting across his shoulder. They say, you call out gently that shepherds once passed secret messages wrapped in cloth and tied to their goat's horn. Historians still argue whether this was ever done or just a clever story, but the boy's grin suggests he's heard the tale before. He lifts a hand in farewell as you continue on, his goats bleating softly as they drift back to their grazing. The road flattens into a stretch of open plain where low stone walls and scattered olive trees mark the boundaries of ancient fields. The donkey's pace slows, his head bobbing in a steady rhythm that matches a rise and fall of your own breath. The satchel shifts slightly against your side with each step, a quiet reminder of the message it holds. You catch a faint scent of bread baking from a farmhouse in the distance, the smell blending with a warm, earthy perfume of sun-warmed stone and dry grass. As midday approaches, you pause beneath a lone cypress tree, its shade offering a welcome respite from the sun. The donkey grazes nearby, his ears flicking at the buzz of insects in the grass. You sip from your water skin, the cool liquid a relief against the dry heat. The satchel rests beside you, its strap curled in the dust like a sleeping snake. They say, you murmur, that couriers once carried pouches of herbs to ward off sickness on long journeys. Historians still debate the effectiveness of such remedies, but you reach into your satchel for a small bundle of mint leaves, their sharp scent clearing your head. In the distance, a dust cloud rises along the road, and soon a rider approaches. Another courier, his mount a sleek bay with flaring nostrils and a coat shining with sweat. He pulls up beside you, offering a nod of greeting and a quiet word. The next station's a day's ride ahead. He says, his voice low. They say it's safer to travel in pairs through the next stretch. Historians still argue whether such warnings were grounded in truth or simple caution, but you accept his offer with a grateful nod. Together, you set off, your donkey's hooves and his horse's rhythmic steps weaving into a quiet symphony. As the afternoon deepens, the land shifts again. Low hills rising against a backdrop of distant mountain, the sky arching wide and clear above. You catch sight of small clusters of stone huts with walls covered in faded murals depicting animals, stars, and stylized landscapes. The courier gestures toward them. They say these were once used as way stations for messengers, places where they could rest and share news. Historians still debate the origins of these structures, but the thought of messengers gathering under their painted walls feels comforting as you pass by. The road winds into a narrow defile where sheer rock walls rise on either side, their surfaces carved by wind and water into strange, flowing patterns. The air is cooler here, carrying the faint scent of damp stone and moss. Your footsteps echo softly in the confined space, blending with the steady clop of the donkey's hooves and the low murmur of the other courier's voice as he shares quiet stories of the road. They say, he murmurs, that in some places the rocks themselves remember the footsteps of those who have passed, holding their stories in the curves and cracks. Historians still argue whether this is pure poetry or holds some fragment of truth, but the idea lingers as you continue. Emerging from the narrow pass, you find yourselves on a high ridge where the land falls away into a broad valley bathed in the golden light of late afternoon. The courier points out the faint line of the next station in the distance, its low walls and tall cypress trees barely visible against the haze. The air smells of pine and dust, and a faint breeze stays the satchel at your side. Together, you guide your mounts down the gentle slope, the path curving through fields of wildflowers and scattered boulders, each step a quiet promise of the stories waiting ahead. As the sun dips toward the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of pink and gold, you reach the station, a low building of sun-baked brick. Its courtyard, filled with the soft sounds of donkeys and horses, welcomes you with a scent of cooking and the murmur of conversation. You and the other courier exchange quiet nods, your paths diverging as you tend to your animals and settle into the evening's quiet. The night deepens, the sky turning an inky blue, punctuated by the glitter of countless stars. You stretch your leg beneath the low wooden table in the way station's courtyard, the scent of grilled lamb and herbs drifting through the air. A lantern flickers softly nearby, its golden light pooling on the worn stone floor. The satchel rests close to your side, its familiar weight a silent companion in the quiet. The donkey, tethered a few steps away, flicks his ears lazily, his breath rising in soft puffs into the cooling night. The way station keeper, a woman with weathered hands and eyes bright with humor, sits beside you, shelling pistachios into a clay bowl. They say, she remarks, her voice low and lilting, that every messenger leaves a bit of their story behind the way station, a laugh, a word of advice, maybe even a song. These places are stitched together with more than stone and mortar. Historians still debate whether such traditions were formalized or just a natural consequence of human connection, but her words settle over you like a familiar blanket. As the meal winds down, she produces a battered lute from behind the door and strums a gentle tune. The melody twines with the soft rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of a stream beyond the wall. The other couriers and travelers join in with quiet hums or soft foot taps, the music blending into the tapestry of night sound. You find yourself humming along, the rhythm of the road still pulsing faintly beneath your skin. Later, as sleep beckons, you stretch out on a pallet beneath the open sky, the satchel tucked close, the stars overhead spinning slow stories of their own. The donkey settles nearby, his shape a warm, steady presence. The last thing you hear before sleep claims you is a faint melody of the keeper's lute, a lullaby for messengers and stars alike. At dawn, the first light spills across the courtyard, casting long shadows and painting the stone walls with pale gold. You rise quietly, brushing the dust from your clothes and sharing a few words of farewell with the keeper. She presses a small pouch of dates and nuts into your hand. For the road, she says softly. They say a gift shared at parting ensures a traveler's safe return. Historians still argue whether such customs ever truly warded off misfortune, but the simple gesture warms you as you sling the satchel over your shoulder and lead your donkey back onto the road. The path ahead winds through low hills blanketed in wild thyme and pale grasses. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of pine and earth. The donkey's hooves strike a steady rhythm against the packed date, and your own footsteps fall into sync with his. The satchels wait a familiar counterpoint. You catch glimpses of stone watchtowers atop distant ridges, their silhouettes softened by the morning light. They say, you murmur, that watchtowers like these once served as signal stations, passing word of messengers' progress through the empire. Historians still debate the extent of this network sophistication, but the thought lingers like a shadow along the ridge. The road descends into a narrow valley where a clear stream threads its way between mossy stone. You pause to let the donkey drink, cupping cool water into your hands for yourself. Nearby, a clump of reeds rustles, revealing a fisherman patiently tending a line. He nods as you pass, offering a quiet word of good fortune. You nod in return, the scent of water and fish mingling with the faint sweetness of blooming jasmine from a nearby thicket. The path climbs again, this time into a stand of tall cedars, their dark trunks rising like pillars into the sky. Shafts of sunlight pierce the canopy, illuminating patches of moss and ferns on the forest floor. The donkey steps carefully, his breath puffing in little clouds. Your own breath matches his, each exhale a quiet rhythm of movement and purpose. They say, you murmur, that Cedar Grove were once used as natural waypoints, their scent and shelter guiding messengers through the wildest stretches of the empire. Historians still debate whether this was intentional or simply poetic coincidence, but the cedar-scented air feels like a blessing. Emerging from the forest, you find yourself atop a broad plateau where the road stretches straight and true into the distance. The wind sweeps across the open land, bending tall grasses into waves and carrying the faint scent of distant rain. You pause to adjust the satchel, feeling its familiar weight against your side. The donkey shakes his head, his ears flicking as though listening to something just beyond hearing. You smile, the shared rhythm of the road settling into your bone. A small stone shrine stands at the road's edge, a weathered figure carved into its face, perhaps a guardian spirit or forgotten god of travelers. You pause, placing a smooth stone at its base. They say, you whisper, that a stone left at the shrine ensures safe passage through the next stretch of road. Historians still debate whether such practices were superstition or tradition, but the act feels grounding, a quiet exchange between traveler and the unseen. The sun climbs higher, warming the land and casting sharp shadows beneath the donkey's hooves. The road curves toward a cluster of mud brick buildings, their walls painted in faded patterns of blue and ochre. A woman stands at a doorway, her hands busy weaving a basket from reed. She lifts her head as you pass, offering a smile and a nod. They say, she calls softly, that a basket woven on the road carries not just goods, but stories. Historians still debate the truth of this saying, but the thought lingers as you walk on, the satchel resting against your side like a woven thread in the larger tapestry of the Persian postal routes. As the afternoon light deepens, the donkey's pace slows, his ears flicking in quiet contentment. You feel the pull of the journey ahead, the gentle weight of the satchel, and the quiet hum of the road beneath your feet. The landscape stretches wide and open, the sky painted with the soft pastels of approaching evening. You walk on, the steady rhythm of the journey blending with the timeless stories whispered along the road. The road stretches ahead, a soft ribbon of dust and shadow winding its way through the evening. You and your donkey press on, the sky above now painted with delicate strokes of lavender and rose as the sun dips toward the horizon. The satchel at your side has settled into a rhythm of its own, a quiet weight that feels almost like a heartbeat against your hip. The donkey's ears flick gently, his steady pace a grounding presence in the shifting light. You come upon a shallow ford where a narrow stream ripples over smooth stones, its surface catching the last rays of daylight. The donkey steps carefully, his hooves sending up tiny splashes that sparkle briefly before falling back into silence. They say, you murmur, that travelers would stop at streams like this to cleanse themselves of road dust and worries, letting the water carry their burdens away. Historians still argue whether such rituals held any true meaning, but you feel a sense of lightness as you cup water in your hands and splash your face, the coolness of quiet balm. Beyond the ford, the road climbs gently into rolling hills where olive trees stand in orderly lines, their silver-green leaves shimmering in the soft light. The air grows rich with the scent of ripening fruit and dry grass. A farmer pauses in his work, leaning on his staff to watch you pass. He lifts a hand in greeting and calls, "Safe journey, messenger." You nod in return, his words echoing in the hush of the hills. They say, you recall, that farmers often looked out for travelers, sharing news of the road and warnings of storms or bandits. Historians still debate the reliability of such tales, but the gesture feels timeless. As the road winds higher, you catch glimpses of distant mountains etched against the darkening sky. The donkey's pace slows as the incline steepens, his breath steady, his steps sure. The satchel shifts with each movement, its contents secure beneath layers of cloth. You pause near a low stone wall where a cluster of wildflowers bloom, tiny, tenacious blossoms clinging to the cracks. They say, you whisper, that flowers gathered on the road carry wishes for safe passage and return. Historians still argue whether such customs were rooted in belief or simple whimsy, but you pluck a single bloom and tuck it into the satchel's strap. The path levels out onto a broad ridge where the air is cooler, touched with a faint scent of juniper and distant rain. A small stone marker stands at the trail's edge, its surface worn smooth by time. You trace your fingers over its surface, feeling the faint indentations left by countless hands. They say, you murmur, that messengers mark their passing with a touch or whispered word, leaving a trace of their journey for those who came after. Historians still debate the authenticity of such gestures, but the act feels intimate, a shared connection with those who walked this road before you. As dusk deepens, you approach a cluster of low stone huts nestled into the hillside. Their windows glow softly with lamplight, and the scent of baking bread mingles with the cool air. A woman stands at a doorway, her hands busy with a spindle of wool. She calls a quiet greeting as you approach, and you exchange a few words about the road ahead. They say, she muses, that the best messengers carry not just messages but stories, tales of places and people stitched together by the road. Historians still debate the value of oral tradition in the postal routes, but her words weave into the night's fabric like a familiar thread. You share a simple meal of lentil soup and flatbread with the villagers, the donkey resting nearby with a bucket of water and a nosebag of grain. The conversation drifts between the familiar and the fantastical, tales of storms that shifted whole riverbeds, of couriers who outran bandits, of donkeys who seemed to sense danger before it arrived. They say, an old man chuckled that one such donkey saved an entire caravan by braying a warning before a flash flood. Historians still argue whether it's true, but I like to think animals know more than we give them credit for. Later, as night deepens and the sky fills with stars, you settle beneath a lean-to near the hut, the satchel tucked close, the donkey's quiet breathing a steady rhythm in the dark. The air cools, carrying the scent of wood smoke and wild thyme. Your eyelids grow heavy, your thoughts drifting with a soft murmur of voices and the gentle crackle of a distant fire. Dreams gather at the edges of your mind, filled with images of winding roads, silvered streams, and the quiet determination of donkeys carrying their precious cargo through the night. At dawn, the first light spills over the hills, brushing the huts and fields with gold. You rise, stretching the stiffness from your limbs, and share a few quiet words with your host before setting out once more. The road ahead winds between low stone walls and patches of flowering shrubs, the donkey's hooves striking a steady rhythm against the packed earth. The satchel feels almost like an extension of yourself now, its weight a familiar promise against your side. As you walk, the air fills with birdsong, a chorus that weaves with the rustle of leaves and the soft pad of footsteps. The landscape shifts subtly, the hills flattening into plains where fields of barley and wheat ripple under light breeze. You catch sight of a shepherd guiding a flock of sheep across a narrow bridge, his dogs circling them with quiet precision. He lifts a hand in greeting, his voice carrying across the field. They say, he calls, that messengers bring news that ripples through the land like the wind in the grain. Historians still debate the reach of the postal routes, but the thought feels as true as a wind against your face. You and your donkey continue, the road unfolding before you like a story told in quiet steps and whispered breaths. The satchel holds its secret cargo, the donkey walks with a quiet grace, and the road hums with the memory of countless messengers and the stories they carried through time. The sun climbs higher, its light spilling golden over the landscape as you and your donkey press onward. The road stretches out ahead, a thread of dust and stone leading through fields dappled with wildflowers and the faint shimmer of heat. The satchel at your side settles against your hip with each step, a steady reminder of your purpose. Your donkey plods along with a soft clatter of hooves. It is flicking in quiet rhythm to the songs of skylarks overhead. You reach a bend where the path crosses an ancient stone bridge, its surface worn smooth by generations of travelers. The water below is clear, reflecting the blue sky and the low stone walls that hem the field. A farmer tending a small plot nearby lifts his head and calls out. They say these bridges remember the footsteps of messengers, each one a story carried forward. Historians still debate the accuracy of such claims, but as you pause, Resting a hand on the cool stone, you feel a faint echo of the thousands who have passed before you. The road continues into a stretch of low, rolling hills dotted with clusters of cypress and olive trees. The scent of the trees mingles with the sun-warmed air, a heady perfume of resin and earth. A small group of shepherds rests under a cypress, their cloaks spread out on the grass, sharing bread and cheese as their flocks graze nearby. One raises a hand in greeting, his voice carrying across the quiet distance. They say, he calls, that messengers once shared their news with shepherds, keeping the road alive with stories. Historians still argue whether these exchanges were official or simply the natural sharing of human experience, but the thought feels as warm as the midday sun. You pause at a rise in the road where a weathered signpost leans precariously, its inscriptions faded but still legible, names of distant towns and way stations, each pointing the way. You trace a finger along the sun-warmed wood, imagining the hands that have done the same, the paths chosen based on these simple guides. They say, you murmur, that each signpost held not just directions but choices, a fork in the road, a decision waiting to be made. Historians still debate whether messengers had discretion in their routes, but you feel the weight of the decision pressing softly against your thought. The path dips into a shallow valley where a stream threads between low banks lined with willows. The donkey's ears perk as you approach, his steps quickening at the scent of water. You guide him to the stream's edge, letting him drink deeply while you scoop handfuls of cool water over your face and neck. The satchel rests nearby, its strap looped loosely over a smooth rock. They say, you whisper, that water from streams like this was once thought to carry blessings from the land itself, washing away the dust of the road and refreshing both body and spirit. Historians still debate whether such beliefs held any true power, but the sensation of water on your skin feels like a quiet gift. As the afternoon light softens, the road rises again, cresting a low ridge where fields stretch in patchwork patterns below. You catch sight of a cluster of buildings nestled against a curve in the hillside, another way station, its low walls and shaded courtyard offering the promise of rest. The donkey's pace quickens, his steps gaining a note of anticipation. You approach the way station, greeted by the warm scent of baking bread and the faint hum of conversation. Inside the shaded courtyard, you find travelers and couriers resting on stone benches, their donkeys and horses tethered nearby. An old man sits at a corner table, weaving thin strips of reed into a basket. He glances up as you settle nearby, nodding in quiet acknowledgement. They say, he muses, that a basket made by a traveler carries the stories of the road, each weave a memory of a place, a person, a whispered secret. Historians still argue whether these baskets truly held such significance, but the image lingers as you watch his deft fingers at work. You share a simple meal of lentils and flatbread with the other travelers, the satchel resting at your feet. The conversation drifts from news of the road to idle stories of mishaps and unexpected kindnesses. One woman, her cloak embroidered with bright threads, leans closer and whispers, they say there's a hidden path through the hills where messengers can travel unseen, known only to those who've walked it before. Historians still debate whether such paths existed or were simply tales told to lend mystery to the journey, but her words stir a quiet curiosity in your thought. As evening deepens, the travelers begin to settle in for the night, spreading blankets and cloaks under the open sky or within the shelter of the courtyard's arches. You find a corner where the satchel rests against your side, the donkey tethered nearby, his breathing slow and steady. The hum of voices fades into the soft crackle of a shared fire, the air rich with the scent of wood smoke and the faint sweetness of dried figs. The stars emerge one by one, scattering across the dark canvas of the sky. You lean back, your thoughts adrift with the stories carried along these routes, of messages whispered in the shadows, of messengers who vanished into legend, of donkeys who knew the road by heart. The satchel's weight is steady against your side, a quiet anchor in the vast, starlit night. As sleep claims you, the last thing you hear is the soft sigh of wind through the cypress, the faint murmur of voices, and the quiet pulse of the road stretching onward into darkness. The first light of dawn spills like honey over the low walls of the way station. You stir beneath your rough blanket, the cool morning air brushing against your skin. The satchel, ever your companion, rests nearby, its familiar way to quiet reassurance as you rise and stretch. The donkey, already awake and nibbling at a sparse patch of grass, flicks his ears in greeting. Around you, the other travelers are beginning to rouse, their movements quiet, respectful of the dawn's hush. You share a bowl of warm porridge with a young courier whose journey will take him along a different road. He smiles faintly, tracing a finger along the worn edge of his wooden spoon. They say, he murmurs, that each road tells a different story, some filled with laughter and easy travel, others heavy with secrets and shadows. Historians still argue whether these sayings reflect real roots or the human need to weave meaning into paths taken, but the notion lingers as you finish your meal and prepare for the day ahead. The road unfurls beneath your feet, the satchel swinging gently with each step. The donkey plods steadily alongside, his hooves striking a rhythmic beat against the packed earth. The morning air hums with birdsong, and the fields on either side ripple softly with a breeze. You pass rows of low stone walls where grapevines twist and climb, their early leaves catching the light like tiny emerald flags. A farmer tending the vines lifts his head and calls, "Safe travels, messenger." They say the road to the next station runs smooth today. Historians still debate the truth of these weather-watching tales, but the farmer's words carry the easy authority of long familiarity with the land. The path dips into a wooded glen where the light filters through the branches in dappled patches of gold and green. The scent of pine and earth mingles with the fresh scent of morning dew. The donkey's ears flick back and forth as if catching whispers hidden in the rustle of leaves. You pause to let him drink from a clear stream that winds its way through moss-covered stone. They say, you murmur, that a drink from a morning stream brings clarity to the mind and courage to the heart. Historians still argue whether such beliefs have any grounding, but the cold water on your hands feels like a quiet blessing. Emerging from the glen, you spot a caravan approaching from the opposite direction. Merchants and their donkeys, laden with baskets of dates and bolts of brightly colored cloth. The lead merchant raises a hand in greeting. They say, he calls with a grin, that messengers bring not just news, but luck to those they meet. His laughter rolls across the space between you like a friendly breeze. Historians still debate whether such luck was more superstition than reality, but you return his way with a smile, the connection a small moment of shared humanity along the road. The day grows warmer as the road winds through a valley where fields of barley and lentils stretch toward the horizon. The satchel rests against your side, its contents secure, its presence as much a part of you now as the steady beat of your steps. The donkey keeps pace, his breath puffing softly in the midday heat. You pause in the shade of a fig tree, savoring a handful of ripe fruit shared by a passing farmer. They say, you muse, that figs eaten on the road bring good fortune, each bite a promise of safe passage and sweet endings. Historians still argue whether such rituals held real power, but the simple sweetness of the fruit feels like a small, perfect gift. The path rises again, this time skirting the edge of a rocky bluff where hawks circle high above. Their cries echo across the open sky, sharp against the hush of the midday air. You rest a moment, watching their graceful arcs, the satchel a quiet weight at your hip, the donkey's breath steady beside you. They say, you murmur, that hawks were once considered the guardians of messengers, their sharp eyes a promise of protection. Historians still debate the validity of this claim, but the sight of the hawk soaring overhead feels like a silent benediction. By late afternoon, you reach the outskirts of a small village where the scent of baking bread and roasting meat carries on the breeze. Children chase each other through narrow lanes, their laughter bright and clear. An old man seated by a well nods as you pass. They say, he remarks, that messengers who reach this village are welcomed with open arms, for their arrival means news and stories from far away. Historians still debate whether such welcomes were universal, but his words warm you as you return his nod and continue along the road. The path beyond the village climbs steeply, the stones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. The donkey's pace slows, his breath puffing in little clouds, but he presses on with quiet determination. You match his steps, the satchel a steady presence at your side. The climb is hard, but at the summit, the land spreads out in a vast, sunlit panorama of fields, orchards, and distant hills. You pause, catching your breath, and feel the weight of the journey behind you, the miles walked, the messages carried, the quiet moments of connection and solitude. The sun begins to dip toward the horizon, its light turning the world to gold. The donkey's ears flick as he catches the scent of evening cooking fires from the next way station, visible now in the distance. The road hums beneath your feet, the satchel of familiar weight, the journey still unfolding before you like a story told in soft, deliberate steps. You walk on, the donkey at your side, the world painted in the warm hues of dusk, and the road stretching out ahead, full of promise and quiet adventure. As the road descends gently toward the final stretch of this leg of the journey, the light softens into a mellow glow. You feel the coolness of evening brushing against your skin, and the satchel at your side swings with the familiar cadence of your steps. The donkey's steady gait beside you, each hoofful a quiet reassurance, weaves into the hush of twilight, as though even the road itself is settling into a gentle stillness. You come upon a low stone wall, its top lined with smooth, rounded pebbles, where an elderly woman tends a row of fragrant herb. She glances up from her work, her face creased with the softness of time, and calls softly. They say messengers who carry stories along these roads are blessed with the patience of mountains and the grace of rivers. Historians still debate the origins of such sayings, but as you exchange a quiet nod with her, her words settle into your bones like a quiet truth. The path winds into a grove of pomegranate trees where clusters of ripening fruit dangle like lanterns in the dimming light. The donkey flicks his ears, pausing briefly to sniff the air. A lone bird calls from a high branch, its clear note echoing in the quiet. You brush a hand over the satchel, feeling the weight of its contents and the countless stories it has gathered along the way. They say, you murmur, that the seeds of a pomegranate hold wishes for safe passage, each bite a silent promise between the traveler and the road. Historians still debate whether travelers truly left offerings at such groves, but the thought lingers like a sweet echo. The path rises once more, cresting a gentle hill where the view opens onto the final approach to the imperial city. You catch your breath at the sight. Rooftops tiled in gold and vermilion, towers rising like silent sentinels, and the faint hum of life threading through the evening air. The donkey's ears perk forward, sensing the shift in the road's rhythm, the anticipation carried on the breeze. You adjust the satchel, feeling its familiar weight shift against your hip, and step forward, your pace quickening with each stride. Guards in crimson and indigo livery stand at the gates, their expressions neutral yet not unkind. One steps forward, glancing at the satchel, and offers a simple nod of acknowledgement. They say, he remarks quietly, that messengers bearing stories carry not just words, but the lifeblood of empires. Historians still debate the accuracy of this sentiment, but his voice carries the weight of something timeless, something that hums beneath the surface of every message, every journey. You pass through the gate, the city unfolding around you in a quiet swirl of color and sound, merchants calling their wares in the fading light, lanterns bobbing gently in the breeze, the distant chime of temple bells calling the faithful to evening prayer. The donkey follows with calm steps, his breath steady, the weight of his burden lightened by the nearing of journey's end. The satchel sways gently against your side, its secrets tucked safe within, the whispers of the road still clinging to its seam. At a narrow alley, a child with wide eyes watches you pass, his gaze following the satchel's movement. He calls softly. They say a messenger's satchel holds 1,000 untold stories. You smile faintly, nodding, the words a quiet echo of the road's long hum. Historians still debate the extent to which messengers wove their own stories into the empire's fabric, but the idea feels true in the hush of twilight. You reach the inner courtyard of the palace's delivery hall, where couriers and officials move with practiced efficiency. An attendant approaches, his robes brushed with gold thread, and gestures toward a low stone bench. Rest here a moment, he murmurs. They say a messenger should always breathe deeply before delivering the final word. Historians still debate whether such pauses were practical or poetic, but you lower yourself onto the bench, the satchel resting in your lap, your breath steadying into the quiet rhythm of the night. After a moment, the attendant returns, his expression respectful. The chamberlain is ready, he says softly. You rise, smoothing the satchel strap against your shoulder, and follow him through a carved doorway into a chamber bathed in lamplight and the scent of sandalwood. The chamberlain, an older man with eyes sharp as a hawk's, looks up from his scrolls, his gaze settling on you. Welcome, he says, his voice low and even. You have brought the road with you. You offer the satchel, feeling its weight lift from your shoulder as the chamberlain accepts it with care. They say, he murmurs, that a message delivered at the right time can change the course of an empire. Historians still debate the truth of such claims, but in this moment, as the satchel is open and its contents revealed, you feel the quiet power of the road, of the miles walked, the stories whispered, the steady beat of footsteps weaving history beneath the moonlight. The chamberlain nods once, a gesture of completion. Your task is done, he says softly. You bow your head, the weight of the journey lifting from your shoulders, the hum of the road settling into the quiet rhythm of your breath. The donkey waits outside, his ears flicking toward the low murmur of evening voices, the scent of baked bread and lantern oil weaving through the air. You step back into the courtyard, your steps light, your heart steady, your thoughts filled with the quiet magic of a road well traveled. The palace fades behind you as you step out into the gentle night. The air feels softer now, tinged with a scent of jasmine and the faintest trace of sandalwood. Your feet carry you along the worn path back through the quiet streets, where lanterns glow like tiny moons and the hush of evening settles over rooftops. The donkey walks by your side, his pace unhurried, his breath steady as though he, too, senses a shift from duty to rest. The world around you seems to breathe in time with your steps. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of a night bird, the rhythmic tap of your shoes against the cobblestones, all of it blends into a quiet lullaby. The satchel is gone now, its weight lifted from your shoulders, but its memory lingers, a soft echo of the road and the stories it carried. You feel a lightness in your chest, as though each step is a release, a gentle exhale after a long, steady journey. You pause beneath a flowering tree where petals drift down like tiny whispers, catching in your hair and clothing. You close your eyes for a moment, the air cool against your skin, the scent of blossoms mingling with the night's hush. Your breathing slows, the rise and fall of your chest sinking with the stillness around you. You feel the tension slip from your muscles, the gentle pull of sleep brushing against your thoughts like a soft curtain. The donkey leans gently against you, his warmth a quiet presence in the cooling air. You smile, your eyelids heavy, your mind quiet, and the world softens into a tapestry of gentle sounds and whispered story. The moonlight brushes your skin, the breeze hums a soft good night, and you slip into sleep, cradled by the road's gentle lullaby.